I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Tuesday, August 23rd at 6:04 p.m. Could I have a roll call, please?
Teresa Moss present.
Veronica Cal present. And Chaz will be joining us as soon as his technical difficulties are corrected. He'll be joining us in nothing. Please join me with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded. It will be posted on the town website after the fact, and it is live on channel 9. Chairman's additions or deletions. Do we have Eric for you? I thought I put this on him. I didn't. Oh, it's under Arpa Projects. Never mind. I didn't list it, so I think we're good. We'll talk then.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to add, and again, maybe we can do this under town administrator updates. Are you going to talk about the opening of the bid for the PESA lease?
I can, yes.
Okay, so we'll talk about that then. Okay, so other than that, no additions or deletions. Public comment period. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment? I don't see any. Moving on, we have the minutes for 4/5/2022 and 5/17/2022 to consider. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the meetings for 4/5/2022.
And I will second that. Discussion. I did have a couple comments. I'm the one that wrote these, so
Yeah.
on page 2 under TEMA, instead I was consistent in saying motion was made, except for in that one place I said a motion, so I'm gonna fix that. And then on the page 3, I have an extra motion passed with all in favor. That is a cut and paste error at the very top of page 3. So I will correct those in the working minutes to review folder.
Okay.
Is there anything else that anybody noticed in here?
Oh, not that I noticed, but just something else I'd like to add. So I was informed that even though I wasn't at the meeting, I can assume that
Yes.
they are correct, so I don't have to say. So I just want to know, I just want that. So.
All right. I see that Chaz has joined us at 6:07. Chaz, are you there? Roll call. Do you hear us? We have feedback. No, it shouldn't be.
Jazz
Okay.
is frozen.
No.
Yeah, but you're coming in choppy.
Yeah, you're sporadic.
So Chaz, you're joining the meeting? So Chaz, you're joining the meeting?
Texting present.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It's coming through Chaz's. Chaz, I think the noises from here through your speaker. The noises through your.
Chaz, try muting your computer. Try muting your computer.
Well, that'll do it.
Okay, we'll see. All right. All right, so we are voting on the minutes for 4/5/2022.
You know, use
All right, we will need to do a roll call vote. So Teresa, how do you vote? We'll need to do a roll call. Chaz? think we just lost him. And Veronica Cal, yes. Let's move on to the 5/17 minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting for 5/17/22.
And I will second that motion. Any comments on that? On this
Mhm.
one? I had just one. Actually, I had two. Maybe three. These are mostly typos. On page 3, this will not constitute a precedent and will not be used in the future, semicolon, any further request on case-by-case basis. So I would put a semicolon in there. Next one would be on page 6. It's the Commission on Disabilities and a capitalization of Squanicook Mills. That's it. Pretty picky, but those are the 3 that I had. So if you want me to, Sabrina, I'll just go in when I'm making the changes in the working. I'll just do those. They're all cosmetic. They aren't content. So, all right. So voting on the minutes, unless you have something else, Teresa or Chaz. All right. So, Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Morse approves the minutes for 5/17/22.
Chaz, can you hear us?
Yeah, I lost its visual and I haven't heard anything from the speaker, even though he's not muted, so.
Okay, I'm gonna abstain for him and Veronica Cal, yes. So that takes care of the minutes. Moving on to 2.1. Oh, and we just lost Chaz again. All right. Appointments and hearings. At 6:05, we have a meeting with the Friends of the Bandstand, Cemetery and Parks. The building inspector, who is not able to be here, but he did send comments along. He's on vacation. And Robert Ferry, who's present. So I guess the question is, Cemetery and Parks, do you have a forum and do you need to open your meeting?
No, we don't have a forum. I'm attending only as an individual member. The other members didn't come, and I don't know if we posted it in time anyway.
Okay, all right, so we won't do that then.
Thank you.
All right, so in our packets, I had put the list of proposed repairs for the gazebo. Have you guys seen those from Eric Chartrand?
I have not.
Okay, I will screen share those.
We don't have anything there either.
You don't have anything from Eric? Okay, we had asked him to comment before he went on vacation.
Oh.
And so he did send this to us. But I'll pull it up and screen share. We also have the list of proposed repairs that had been submitted earlier to us in like the June, July timeframe. That was in our packet. And we have further on in the agenda, we have the document that Robert submitted to discuss. So if we want, we could move that up and do it all in one fell swoop, since we have you here, Robert, for this. So no point in moving. Yeah,
That
so
would be 4.2.
it's 4.2. So do I need to make a motion to move 4.2
Yeah,
up?
take 4.2.
So is there a motion to move 4.2 to take it in conjunction with 3.1?
I make a motion to take motion 4.2 to discuss and review the agreement and contract with Robert Darian Architect to 2.1.
Okay, so we'll take those in conjunction and I will second that. All those in favor?
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. So we have that as well. We had sent a note to Roger because in the last meeting, when we had looked at what Robert had, he had included the standard contract, which must have been executed between Ross and the state when the 50,000 was came in from the earmark. And so we misunderstood that. We thought that was a contract with Robert, but it wasn't. It was Roger, went to Roger as the administrator and Ross signed as the town administrator.
And what did I sign?
I don't think your signature is on.
It was original.
Do you have a copy of that?
Well, it'd be in the.
I think you're talking about the, basically it's the grant contract.
That is exactly what it is.
Right, so.
So do
we
you
wouldn't have
have that,
signed
Pam? Did you pass that up? Is that signed by,
Oh, no, I didn't sign this. This isn't the one.
this isn't what you signed, okay. Yeah, this is what we were looking at last time. This is exactly it. And it's with the Commonwealth and, us, the town of Townsend, and Roger is the contract manager. And Ross signed it for the town as the town administrator. So that's what that was. So we misunderstood that. We thought that was with Robert. So, Robert, go ahead.
I'd like to speak on behalf of everybody that's involved with this project here. To put things in perspective so that we're all on the same page as to what's going on and how things have to be done.
Okay, I think what I would like to do, I would like to first put up the list of, the list of things that came forward to us, the list that Eric gave us, just to look at. We don't have to, and then for you, would that be okay?
Yeah, I was just trying to simplify a lot of this.
I think it makes sense to put the list that Eric
To
came
do,
up with, just to make sure that everybody had contemplated all those things. So
yeah,
anything that-
just to put them up so that we
Yeah,
know
that'd be it.
what we have. And then, so I am going to share screen, but I have to pull these up first, and I'm going to pull them from the SharePoint, so it's going to take me just a minute.
I'm just gonna ask a question while you're doing that. So this is what we have from Eric. You're gonna pull that up. And the other list we just got tonight is from whom?
That is from Sanitary and Parks, and at the top it says a list of proposed prepared.
Oh, right in the title. Never
yes.
mind.
Okay. And that
Read.
is in the packet as well.
Yeah, I got that. Okay. I just have to read. Okay.
So let me just pull them out of the ship because I don't have them teed up. Unless you do. No, you don't have to. Okay. It'll only take me a minute. So hopefully I haven't got the investor one. Okay. All right, now this. Hopefully this is it. Are you looking at the list of proposed changes?
Yeah.
Do I need to make it bigger? Yes.
Yeah, I think the one from Eric is probably more important, since most folks here probably have the one.
Okay, so this is my my thought. Eric's, so I went through Eric's list and it refers to some of the ones in here. And so, so are you all familiar with this list? Because it came from you guys.
No, came from us. That gave them
That came from
friends.
the Friends.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so this says a list of proposed repairs to the bandstand as agreed by the Cemetery and Parks Commissioners
We had a meeting.
and the Friends of the Townsend Bandstand. And we discussed this was for July 5th. So we discussed this at our July 5th meeting, where we just kind of brought it up, that's all. So, John, you're looking like you're in headlights. Have you not seen this?
No, this is, we went over this, so I think some time in June possibly, it might have been early
Yes.
July. But I know I had some notes with some minor variations on that list, but for
Okay,
example, number one, we talked about this and I'm sure Jerry will agree that we talked about the fact that they said the ceiling, you should keep the ceiling.
okay,
So I made the note that you retain the ceiling because that has a operative effect on the way the bandstand works.
okay. Number one, I thought was the understructure and the lowering the structure. Number 7 is the ceiling. So, but
Yeah,
so
yeah.
hold that thought, John,
Yeah, okay.
because we're gonna look at Eric's list.
Yeah.
Which, so what I did is I kind of cross-referenced it. So I'm gonna try to not lose this one. So these are all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through 9. These are all the things that you guys, both groups, talked about with the gazebo. All right, so we asked Eric to weigh in because he couldn't be here tonight. And so I am going to, so there it is. So this is what he proposed. Can everybody see that? Does it need to be a little bigger?
Sorry.
Yeah, me too. All right, so given that it will be an open bid situation with prevailing wage, the 50K allotted will only go so far. So this is what he said. So the electrical hazards. So this was his number 1. And I thought this corresponded with number 8 on the list. So hopefully everybody has copies of that list. I know that Jerry has some with her. So the list that we just looked at, I matched number 1 on Eric's list with number 8. Number 8 said evaluate all electrical plugs, wiring in the ceiling, inspect all wiring on the 9 lamps, outlets installed, 1 each post and 1 in the middle, install a dimmer switch, 2 gooseneck lamps for front and rear egresses, electrical box to be kept locked, refinish light globes and shields. All right, might not match perfectly, but what Eric said was the electrical hazards are, in his opinion, the most pressing after inspecting the gazebo with the electrical inspector. The Romex wiring is not rated for exterior use. The control box was unlocked, allowing access. The lighting was not rated for exterior use. The extension cords used were intended for interior home use, and there's a lack of plugs, etc. So, you know, they're not, it's not a one-to-one, but it's the electrical system needs looked at. So that was number 8, and I gave that 2 stars on the list of things to look at. Then his next one was floor removal. The floor is visibly rotted. This is number 4 on the list that came in from in July. So it's visibly rotted, has outlived its expected lifespan. There may be latent some subfloor damage that is concealed. So he thought the floor. Number 3 was the posts. And I might not have had a map. The posts on the bandstand, not the posts under the bandstand, need to be replaced. They've been poorly repaired many times, put together with various fasteners and bracketry. They would surely fail if there is a significant wind event. And I don't think I matched that perfectly. Oh yeah, number 1, inspect the understructure to evaluate the posts. So kind of number 1, but kind of not. There's also a weight on number 1 because he said not so much the understructure, if I remember right. Anyway, number 4, seats and backs. And that was number 3 on your list.
Yes.
Number 5 on his, removal of the ceiling. That's number 7 on your list. Number 6 on Eric's was remove the extension previously completed by the Boy Scouts. This section of the gazebo was intended to be temporary and removable It is not period correct and should be removed. And he says at that point, the money is exhausted. Okay, so that was Eric's way in. Now, Mr. Therian, let's go to you. And hear what you have to say, and then we'll have everything that we have out there and we can talk.
The first thing I want to say is,
I'm going to ask you to do us one favor. Come up here closer to the owl so that the people at home can hear you as well. Eric's getting you a chair.
thank you. There's a substantial list of things that need to be done just to restore the current basic gazebo. And in that view, we have to look at the amount of funds that are available. And in that view, I've been appraised of all these other communications that you have. And so the objective that the role I can play here is try to get the optimum value for the town with the resources that are available. So my understanding is that we're restricted to a $50,000 budget and there is no supplemental funds going to be available.
Currently, that's the case.
That's what I understand. And so I've been working with Roger and a lot of the people here present already, and they've had a lot of input into what they'd like to see and what they think are relevant and important things to be considered. So my job will be to prioritize what we can do with the funds that are available with the intent of what the original grant was and in adhering to the requirements for public bidding. And so, so I have done a cursory review of the bandstand already to examine, you know, get a physical idea of the magnitude of work that's going to be required. And Roger was very helpful in being present with me, and he had his assistant with him. So I had access to under the floor and to examine the Boy Scout platform and to examine the roof and the railings and the posts, a lot of these subjects, but it was a cursory review to try to determine what was the priorities here that we have with the funds that are available. So my job here is first is the legal one of making sure that this goes out in a public bid format. So I can tell you things about public bidding that are going to impact what the end result will be. So the requirements are that we have to provide prevailing wages. I have to prepare a set of construction documents, which are not just drawings, but specifications and all the contract requirements for the project, such as insurance, debris removal, and every topic that could be involved in the contract, and prepare a descriptive and comprehensive package of what the bidders are going to be asked to bid on. Knowing that we have a limited budget, I am going to have to be responsible for selecting the priorities that we have to do that. Okay, so to meet the intent of the grant and to meet the requirements of the public bidding procedures. So fortunately, I'm going to be offering these services pro bono, so that reserves a lot of funds to go directly into the bandstand project. So what happens is I have to prepare the documents for the bidders. We have to invite contractors to bid on the state's bidding site.
I just want to say that Eric is our chief procurement officer and he is first in doing that.
Yeah. So to the extent I know all the things that you're talking about, so
Right.
we probably can just move on to more the substantive topics. The actual bidding stuff is not, shouldn't be a problem.
Well, it doesn't, well, the things that I'm concerned about is, these are the things that I'm concerned about. What I prepare in that bid, first of all, I have to prepare a scope of work that I think will be available with the funds that are here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
either that
would
or,
agree with that. And I
it-
think
it-
that's what Eric was looking at too.
Right.
yeah, either that or we do a scope of work that includes everything with a priority list of things that can be added on or deleted.
Well,
Like
the other thing, there's a lot of things to consider here. One, I could prepare a bid with the limited scope of work, okay? In other words, not everything that we want to do, and not everything. In other words, the funds available will not do the restoration of the entire project. It's my opinion right now, okay?
Let him finish.
So in order to do that, I have to prepare the bids. I'm sorry, I do need to continue with some of the things I was saying. And invite bidders to come and then have them look at the physical project and then invite bidders and open bids and everything that's required by the statute. And so the statute does allow, if we don't get enough qualified bidders, 3, that the government agency is free to act independently on their own best interests. And so I have to prepare, so I can prepare bids for a base price with alternates, how much more to do this, how much more than that. So the objective would be to prepare a base bid, which will feel comfortable will be under budget, under the amount of funds we have. And the other thing is to prepare alternates for them to bid so that if we award a contract with a base bid, then that contract still allows us to extend the scope of work later, meaning that the town can raise additional money or use other resources to do other things, okay? So those are all tools that I have in preparing the bid document that I can optimize the most benefit for the town. And so including what I know personally will be the minimum requirements to proceed to restore the bandstand will be in the base bid, and then I'll prepare alternates, hopefully for any surplus funds that we could award later on, or in the actual contract. So that's one tool. And the other tool, the other subject here is when it comes to restoration, there's different opinions or definitions or qualities of restoration that can be used here. So I think that in terms of the interests of the town, we want to preserve the bandstand, preserve the image that it has, maintain the current character of it without doing exhaustive and comprehensive restoration work, okay? And there's a big difference here. So if you are doing a comprehensive restoration in the nature of a major national historic building, the main objective is to restore everything that has to be fixed or whatever. And that includes, and that could be very costly, particularly with the prevailing wage standard. So I wanted to be clear what quality of restoration we're talking about. In other words, we're going to make it structurally sound. We're going to address the public health issues such as wiring. We're going to do a reasonable repair so that it will look exactly the way it was before, but not be burdened with repairing rotted wood when it's more economical to replace it with new wood, and making selected decisions about that are what I call value engineering. In other words, they will put our funds to the optimum use. And so that's what I wanted to discuss here. So in the course of this, have you all seen the minutes of the last meeting that that Roger had with us?
I have not. You?
No, okay. So the other thing I proposed, if there's a lack of funds, then there's the option of doing it in phases. That was presented for other topics that came up with the collective meeting of all these people, from the historic people and the musicians people, and other things that they wanted the gazebo to do. In other words, beyond what it does now, or and so we had a discussion about that, and topics came up like handicap ramps, expanding the square footage to accommodate more musicians. And I spent a little time discussing some design scenarios for that. However, and talking about what we have for funds now and the time restraint that we're under to act on this grant, and the no formal decisions were made about which way to do anything yet. And so I was offering design suggestions, although I'm not really an architect for you yet. So it was very easy to understand and pretty obvious that we should stay focused on the intent of the grant just as it was presented. And these things, phase 2 and 3, would be other programs that we can do later after the grant program has been exhausted, and there will be no question about the grantee or the grantor questioning what we did with their funds. And so that's why I'm referring to phase 1, phase 2, and 3, so that the other people have an opportunity to make some decisions about what is really, there's no definitive plan for what these other service things would be. And so I did that in terms of the time restraint and in terms of the budget restraint that we have with the program now. So I'm just trying to explain to everybody so that there's no misunderstanding what I view my scope of work to be, and then in my efforts to do the best for the town.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing from you is pretty much exactly what Eric said, as far as making sure that the basic structure is sound.
That's correct.
That's the first thing, and that's what the 50,000 will be.
Right.
Anything that is beyond that, as far as expanding the platform or coming up with some other way to add more square footage, would be in a later phase of the project.
That's correct.
And the restoration may not be perfectly the way you would do it if it were a historic building.
Museum
It's
piece,
based on, right, on what is most practical.
right.
And so that's what I'm hearing.
Right.
So Teresa, go ahead.
So I get all of that. The one thing I don't understand is no matter how we proceed, how do you proceed without taking ADA into consideration?
There's exemptions under the building codes for this, and we can get waivers if we need to. But this is an existing historic structure. And so there is no requirement that a building that was built prior to ADA has to be made compliant. And at this point, because it's a repair and renovation, it is not a new addition where the scope of work is going to be expanding what's already there.
So
Okay,
in phase two.
So
or
that's-
phase
that
three.
is a relief that's made available to situations very limited to the types that we're doing.
Okay, I believe you, but I didn't think that was the case because I knew that was like the problem with the library. Yeah,
Well, it depends on who you're
Right.
talking to, I think.
Also the scope of the renovation.
Right.
yeah, okay.
It's usually based on the.
So the way this is going to be approached to the building department, it's going to be a repair permit. Okay, so, and it is a gazebo, which can be argued many ways. It could be considered a non-occupied space, even though people are standing on it. So it goes under the category like a deck. It can also, depending on the height of it, can be exempt for other reasons. But the very first reason I told you is probably the most appropriate one. And I don't think we have to do any more than that.
So
Okay.
I guess at this point, I know Claire had something to say, but I think that what we should say is that, well, go ahead. Teresa.
Yeah, I just said one more thing. I'm just thinking, I guess I don't know how I'm thinking, but if we think of expansion of it, like adding a platform or an ADA or something as phase 2, phase 3,
Right.
phase 4, is there a way to determine, because I knew this was for sure the case when I've ever done any type of construction, if it's done within, like it's usually, if it's done within the initial instructions, it's significantly cheaper than coming in and adding it in the second phase. Is there a way to determine, like, if we put this off to phase 2, how much more additional that's gonna cost?
Well, from an architect's standpoint, when we have any kind of project, this is a project of limited scope only because of the grant.
Right.
If it weren't a project of limited scope because of the grant, you would start with a master plan. In other words, you address all the things you'd like to see. And then you prioritize those. And so that master plan can be modified into a comprehensive bidding set of plans for just one phase with construction documents and more detailed drawings of how the next phase would work into it. Okay, so there's several different approaches that can be taken. In this particular instance, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true if you're doing, you know, a really substantial building or a house. So pre-planning what you're going to do in the next phase. In this instance, the topics that I've already shared with these people of how these things can be done, it's just, it's not going to impact the initial base structure.
So
Okay.
you're not gonna, what I'm worried, you're not gonna build something in phase 1 that's gonna have to be stripped away in order for phase 2 to fit in.
No, we're not going to be, I mean, if anything, it would be removing some of the railings, okay? But again, like I said,
there's been a lot of discussion about what that could be. Some people think it should be sheltered in a roof.
Yeah.
Okay, and well, that's a whole different image. And so there's a historical viewpoints on that. So none of that has been resolved to even study or do an analysis of what a master plan could or should be. All right. So I haven't done any of that. I've suggested things in a 1.5 hour meeting with people of how these things could be done. But there's been no agreement on any of it. So to me, it's a separate project at a different day. And these people need more time to determine exactly what they're all going to agree upon and what a new scope of work will be. I'm only a tool to show them the options they have. I do want to address one more question, one point that you did bring up about ADA, so people understand this a little better. ADA is a Civil Rights Act, it's a federal law. It has no rules and guidelines. They have guidelines, but it applies way beyond just buildings. So in Massachusetts, regarding the building code, we are only obligated to meet the requirements of the Architectural Access Board, which is a separate section of the Massachusetts Building Code. And the ADA federal law is a civil rights law, so that it basically says anybody with any disability should not be denied any rights. Okay, it's a very broad law. So in that in that perspective, just so people have a better understanding of what we're talking about, there are 600 already federally defined legal disabilities. And they include some very bizarre things like kleptomania and, things that people wouldn't normally think would have an impact in the building. They also include like people that are too short, too high, too heavy, too not heavy, that are paraplegic or not. So, and then you apply that to a plumbing code for a commercial building. It says I have to put a drinking fountain on every floor. Okay, in an office building, well, how do I do one for one that's accessible to all these different disabilities, and the town wouldn't want to pay for 800 or 600 drinking fountains. So I want to make that clear when we talk about ADA. That's entirely not what we should be talking about when we're talking about a construction project, okay? Because the building code it's Architectural Access Board requirements. And in those requirements, they're pretty well focused on people that are wheelchair bound. The primary guidelines and code requirements are dictated for that particular type of disability. They do not address all the other disabilities. They do in some areas. For example, if you have a staircase and you have a blind person, the building code expects you to be aware that they could walk into that staircase. But it's very limited. For
But you're
other
saying would
disabilities.
be fine with the architectural asset.
Pardon me?
Architectural access
Board.
would be board. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have any issues with, most likely with the construction.
Yes, I have to comply with the Architectural Access Board and preparing the documents for this
Okay.
project. Yes.
All right, so I guess the question becomes next steps. But, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I know that folks wanted to speak, but I think from the perspective of the board, there are kind of two things that we need to do. One of which is to make the board needs to make the determinations to whether or not they want to accept Mr. Therian's kind offer of pro bono work and enter into an architectural agreement with him. I think that given the limited funds on the project, that's probably a wise fiscal choice. And the second thing is, as you say, we need to figure out who is going to assist Mr. Therian in setting the scope of work and the priorities. I think that, the building commissioner has made his thoughts known, but I think there needs to be some direction from the board as to this is how we're going to set those priorities.
Right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let the floor speak, and then we'll get back to those things that we need to do. And it is 10 till 7, and we have a pretty long meeting, so Claire, go.
My question was, at what point did this become a limited budget? Of only 50,000.
Are there other funds? I guess the question
Well,
is,
there are
there
other funds out there, but we haven't gone after them because there's been no movement.
Okay, so, all right, any other comments that anybody has?
Well,
John?
just briefly in terms of chronology, I think I wanted to say that, I think we had worked with the Friends of the Bandstand, and I think you have the list of things that we had agreed on. Then we got Mr. Therian's offer, suggesting that, trying to do everything that we had talked about was not going to be possible within the 50,000, but that the repair of the bandstand to make it safe would be. And I think that there was a meeting at the Cemetery and Parks, and the Friends of the Bandstand met on, I think, July 26th. I wasn't able to attend, but both boards voted to do that, to go forward with that. And if you folks haven't got a copy of the minutes, I've got a copy here
Yeah,
on that, but. So I would encourage, as Eric said, I'd encourage the board to vote to accept Mr. Therian's offer. And I'm pretty confident that we can, yeah, sure. We can, agree on, I think we, pretty much had a meeting of minds of what needed to be repaired.
and looking at, let me go back to the other document here. So when I compared what Eric did, which was, he said, okay, the 50K. Number one, we wait on that. That one's kind of 50-50, because he said no posts underneath, just posts above. Replacing the apron with clapboards, wait. He said number 3 and number 4 seem reasonable. Number 5, removing the cement stairs, is wait. Number 6, he said that's not really a thing to worry about so much. And you can read his thing there. Number 7 is do the ceiling to some extent. Number 8, yes, yes, yes. And number 9, I didn't mark that one. Strip the roof shingles, both levels, replace all rotted wood and missing molding under. He didn't really, number 5, removal of the ceiling, the repair, then so 9 is kind of 50-50. So it does kind of fit your list.
Right.
And he didn't think that this entire list could be done for the 50K that we do have. Now, there might be availability of other funds. I don't know about them. I just know what we have in the town. And so I think doing a plan to restore what we have, what Mr. Therian was talking about and what Eric was talking about, makes sense to get together and scope that out once we, vote to have you go forward. And then if there are other things that can be done and there's a way to get funding for it, and it allows you guys more time to decide what we're going to do to expand square footage, if in fact that is needed, without, personally, I agree with Eric. Remove the extension previously completed by the Boy Scouts, because it's pretty not attractive at this point. And it was meant to be removed anyway. It was just supposed to be temporary, put up every summer and taken down. And that's not exactly how it's ended up. So, and which I think then made the wiring be the extension cords and the this and the that. I don't really know. But in any event, I think that it's time for us to go forward with a vote on whether or not to go forward with Mr. Therian. And then I
have
think a
none.
little bit of direction to, as far as where. Teresa.
Yeah, I just have one more question, concern, whatever. Like we're saying, you know, going forward with using you under a limited budget of 50,000. But I do believe there's a potential and opportunity to go out and know many members of the towns who would like to contribute. What would be the harm to give 6 months, whatever, a set time frame to come up with additional funding to support this, and then put the bid out for all we have, the 50,000 grant plus the additional raise by the town, instead of doing it bit and pieces.
Well, there's some options here. We have a toolbox of things that we can explore. The first thing I do want to do is address this list here. What we have is a survey of things that need to be addressed.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to suggest that we have a coordinated effort between myself, Eric, and Roger to help prioritize that base bid. Okay.
I think
Yeah,
you
we
have
got
to
it.
include the
Yeah.
Friends of the Bandstand in that too, because that's how we wound up here to begin with.
Yeah.
So,
They must be.
so,
If I can just make a real quick comment,
Yeah.
very quickly. I think that your concern, there's a way to structure a bid that has add alternates
Right.
that would meet your concern, so that we would have pricing upfront for everything that we wanted to
Right.
do. And then if more money was gleaned, we would just say, yes, we're gonna add on this ramp, and we're gonna add on, doing the ceiling. So I think there's a way to structure a bid to be able to accomplish that.
I'm not trying to be exclusionary with anybody here. I'm just trying to focus on what's a real approach to what we're dealing with and the resources we have. All these other. So I'm looking at a major structural stabilization of a gazebo. I mean, that's the core thing that we have to address. And so in terms of historic or musicians, Eric, Roger, and I are the ones most qualified to make those decisions as to what the priorities are. So as far as, sorry. So I'm only saying that is not to exclude anybody, but to expedite the process, because all these meetings have to be scheduled and coordinated, and I'm feeling a time crunch myself right now to be able to deliver even what I'm going to be asked to do.
I don't think it needs to include the whole group. I think that the Cemetery and Parks Commission can, that's Roger, essentially.
Yes.
And, you guys can work with him. I think that Eric, both Eric,
Sure.
should be involved,
Okay.
that you should be involved, and I do think someone from Geraldin's
Yeah, I
group,
don't think
one
it has
person.
Be right, the whole. group,
One, it
but
doesn't
a
have to be
member.
the whole group, one representative, and it needs to be the same representative every time, not a switch off of people. And then people can go back to their groups and report back.
Right.
There's a hand.
Chad says it.
Chaz, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome back, by the way.
Oh, and you sound great now. How are you feeling?
I guess I sound better than actually how I feel, but I personally think that we need to take a step back here. I believe that what was presented here, and I believe that we should, as a board, look at talking with Mr. Therian and take him up on his offer. I think that's a gracious offer, and I appreciate that. The most important thing, I believe, and this is something that the town has been lacking for years and years and years, we need to have a master plan for this gazebo. I don't think setting, well, we're going to try this in phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3. And I understand that sounds like we're dragging our feet, but this is a major project, number one. And number two, this is very personal to a lot of townspeople. I'm more concerned about the fact that we have a town band that sits up there every Thursday during the summer. That is a big money maker for a lot of other people in town. And not only the safety issue is what I'm concerned about. Number two is we want to be able to have it so that we can have other functions there as well, and not just the band. So I would like to be able to have a full plan on what we plan to do with that, with all of the phases, so that we do give opportunity for fundraising, for the Friends of the Bandstand to have an opportunity to raise more funding, so that we know what the grand scheme of what we're supposed to do is, and we can pare it back and know that if we have continued fundraising, we'd be able to get to where we want to go ultimately.
I don't think that anybody, I think that that's the add alt piece that gives the master plan more or less.
But we don't have a master plan, is my
But we
point.
haven't worked on one yet.
Right.
Is what it comes down to. So we have to vote. I think I'm looking for a motion to accept Robert Therian's agreement, architectural service agreement between himself and the town of Townsend, that we can accept this. And then we can let the working group go forward, making it safe first of all, and then looking at the pieces that you're talking about, Chef.
Thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept Mr. Therian's gracious offer of pro bono for the bandstand.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion
Right,
on the agreement?
yes, I just want a clarification on the agreement. It's exclusively for the restoration project. Okay, for the grant funds now.
That's where I have a problem.
Well, I guess we both have a problem. I don't mind doing master plan services, and I would do them again pro bono. But I want to take one step at a time. You'll be happy with how I performed in this phase, and then we can do another one.
It has nothing to do with that at all, sir. My point is that I feel hamstring when it's being done in a manner in which we need to be a little more open and transparent.
I'm sorry, I don't think I have deceived anybody here or tried to influence
I'm
anything.
not sure what you mean, Chaz.
I mean, it's the scope and the agreement is, we don't know what the full agreement is between the two parties. I don't know. We don't have a master plan, so we can't say that he's just doing one particular portion of it.
No, we're saying we're trying to restore the bandstand based on the grant that we've been given.
Right.
To do master plan services requires a lot of hours, a lot of coordination, and a lot of different design alternates and studies. And we do not have the time within this grant program to do a master plan and deliver what the program needs are.
Right.
So I'm not trying to be obstructive here. I'm dealing with reality. It would be a different story if we already had a master plan and we could call this grant phase 1, but we're working the other direction. We have the grant, we have phase 1, which means to restore that. We have unknowns about what's going to be acceptable or desirable by the community for a master plan. There's other things that impact a master plan, not only the needs of the historic and the musicians, physical situations with a common that's already had sidewalks and capital improvements made, such as lighting and everything else. So all those things have to be discussed in order to incorporate and develop a master plan. All these people here that have different ideas about what to do it need to have visual examples of what that's going to look like. That is an entirely different scope of work here. And so I just want to make that clear that this is all I intended to do at this point. I have no problem doing more for the community later, but I don't want this in a contract where I have a deadline and a budget and diverting all my time and attention to design studies. And I'm sorry, but that's the real situation, and it has to be acknowledged.
So I guess my question is, in that chest, did you think this was for a master plan? Or are you saying we need a master plan?
I'm saying that if we are looking for this project to have different phases, you know, it looks to me like we're being forced to do what we can to spend the $50,000 before we lose it. Am I not correct in that assumption?
You want to spend it all on design?
I mean, we could spend it all on design and then would have to go out and raise funds to do any of the work. And it looks to me like we have some critical needs on that gazebo right now.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, the electrical, to just make it safe the way it is right now.
Correct.
So if we want to contract for a master plan separately, we could do that, but I think that this is more to make it safe and to restore it to some degree, because there's work that needs to be done, repair work. Okay, we're in the middle of a motion. We have a motion on the floor for Mr. Therian's services. So if it's in relation to that. So I guess at this point, do we need to add anything to the agreement to make it specific on what Mr. Therian will be doing?
Maybe I do have a question on it.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to know the difference between replace, repair, and restore,
Oh, boy.
because those words are kind of going around in a circle. And sometimes you have to do things that aren't not necessarily fitting with the gazebo at that age.
You want me to address this now?
I think we're gonna vote here. So I guess the question is, do we add anything? I had written,
I don't think, I'm okay with not adding anything, but I do want it in the minutes or et cetera, that we would like to have at least a sense, if we are able to raise additional funds, what phase 2 looks like. It doesn't have to be a master plan per se, but, you know, I'd like to get a sense of where we're going, in very general, what is beyond the $50,000 once, because I do feel the town is going to raise additional funds.
I know what you're trying to do, okay? But I have to make you aware of the real situation, okay? If the town wants to think of a master plan, then they should remove the fact that there's a repair grant here, okay? So that's another project.
Well, can I
It's
just
like
give
taking
you,
a house and say, what else can we
can
do
I
with
just
it?
give you an example though? Okay, phase 1 doesn't include the stairs.
Does what?
The stairs, replacing the stairs. The concrete, removing the stairs. That wasn't on any of this list, removing the stairs.
Well,
But
I don't,
yeah, it is. It's on number
Yeah,
5
it is.
on.
I think we were gonna put wood stairs back in.
Never mind, then my example isn't gonna be any good, because then I was gonna say,
let me-
we can say,
Right.
here's phase 1.
All right.
But we know, anticipate the stairs will be here.
Let me address the hard issue.
Okay.
Okay. the hard issue is we gotta save this building from deteriorating any more than it is.
Yeah.
Or that's the core problem here, okay? Now, when we talk about master plans, there's a lot of input that a lot of people want to have into that decision. And there's going to be a lot of work required to illustrate and show people so they have an analysis. It's design can go many directions depending on what the objectives are. Right now, we don't have a common objective on any of it because people haven't had anything to look at, okay? So I agree, if the town feels they want to do a master plan, that's fine, but that's a different project than we're doing now. And I feel like under a lot of pressure to deliver this within the funds and time that we have, and putting that in my own personal perspective of scheduling it. So that's why I asked for this to be of limited scope. I have no problem talking to people and you know, meeting and doing other things peripheral to this project or that are related to it. I really don't want to make people think I'm not interested in doing that and exploring it with you. I just feel like this is quite a bit of responsibility to handle, and there's a lot of work to do to even get it up to public bidding standards. And I already took the initiative and got some of this information in a digital format, just so I have something to show people when we met earlier. But there's a time requirement here, and I have limited resources to do all that.
Thank you. That helps. And
So-
I am ready to move forward.
I think I might be making an amendment to this
Okay.
agreement. And Eric, you can tell me whether whether the wording is good. I, Robert Therian, Massachusetts registered architect, here in offer to provide full architectural, engineering, consulting, and control services for the restoration, repairs, and alterations for a scope that fits exclusively within existing grant funds on a pro bono basis. I think we need to mention something about the scope on this. So that we don't wind up having Mr. Therian in the position where more is being expected of him than what is realistic for the time frame and the funding that we currently have. If we want a master plan, then I think we, the Board of Selectmen, should figure out how we're going to pay for that and go out to get that done separately once we get the existing structure made safe for the public.
So moved.
There's already a motion on the floor.
I thought you made an
I made an
amendment. to it.
amendment. Amended to add this wording about the scope. And it's within the existing grant.
Is Mr. Therian amenable to that?
Yeah, I just want to focus on what the grant is doing now and stabilizing that and getting the optimum I can for the funds available. And if we award a base contract that's of a minimal level, then we can always ask later on for a change order if the funds are raised and somebody really knows what they want to do, okay? But I personally feel that I'm going to have quite a challenge to even do what we need to do with roofs and structural repairs to that current gazebo within the funds that are there, particularly under the prevailing wage requirements. So so I'm interested in getting that bid out because based on the results of that bid, might provide some more options, but I can't make them available to you until we have those bid results. Okay. So there are other things that can be done once we know if we have qualified bidders and the other danger here is it's not appropriate to make the scope of the project when you put it out to bid, knowing the awarding authority, knowing they don't have the funds to do it. Okay. So that is not a very good thing to have happen. And it can generate a lot of legal.
All right, so, yeah,
Right.
so my amendment right here is to say for the restoration, repairs and alterations. And right in here, a caret for a scope that fits exclusively within existing grant funds,
I would say reasonably instead of exclusively
reasonable.
within existing grant funds, because no one can predict exactly how it's.
Right,
going.
how about the intent?
Yeah,
How about
Okay.
the word like the intent of the existing?
I'll go with reasonable. For a scope that fits reasonably within existing grant funds. Are you good with that, Mr. Theron?
I'd, in other words, I like to have it written so that it is I'm being contracted to meet the intent of using the funds that are there.
Right,
think
that's what I.
The best I
That's
can.
what-
All right, so our vote is on the amendment to adding the words to the contract. That's the first vote. So, okay, I'm not right now. I move that we amend the contract to add the wording that we just discussed. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, roll call vote.
Teresa Amos, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. Okay, and the second motion is the larger motion on the floor to accept Mr. Therion's kind offer of pro bono work. That was, motion was made by Chaz, seconded by Teresa. So is there a vote on that?
Teresa Amos, yes.
Chaz? Did we lose him again?
No.
No.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. All right, so Mr. Therian, you're on board
Oh,
to work
thank you.
with us on this. And I guess our next thing is getting the work started. So I would want, I mean, this is me, so you guys can.
well, I was
Yeah,
gonna
go
say, I think you'd mentioned earlier what I think is a very good group. It would be if it's the building commissioner and Roger Raposa, myself, a member of the Friends of the Bandstand that they designate to be a part of the working group to set up the scope. And again, I think it's important that it is one person, just because if we're gonna have, it's gonna be a multi-meeting. I mean, we might be able to get this done in a meeting, but it may take a couple. And then as long as the Cemetery and Parks is comfortable with Roger being their representative,
Yeah, I think so. I think
Okay.
we will.
Okay,
then those people scheduling a meeting as soon as possible to meet with Mr. Therian about prioritizing the items that were on the list to make the building safe.
and who is gonna set up the first meeting?
I will.
Well, okay. All right. All right, and Geraldine, you guys will let Eric know who your representative is for that working group?
We will let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's it then. We're gonna
Okay.
move on, correct? That took care of 4.2 and 3.1.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Ryan, Teresa, everyone. Appreciate your time. Thank you, and thank you, Chad.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. So
Welcome, Jordan.
We should do it.
I get real.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
if I can suggest that we, given that Karen is here to discuss 3.2, we might take it out of order.
that, order. We don't need a motion. for
You're
that, do we?
happy about.
I think you can just make a quick voice motion.
Okay, so, I'd like to move that we take,
I'm sorry, I didn't
3.2
want to be rude to you.
before 3.1. Are we good with that, Teresa?
Oh, you were a little.
Yes.
bit-
Well,
Yeah.
I'm very-
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing.
able to-
All right,
Say hello and-
all right, so going to 3.2. Is there a motion to appoint, Elise Johnson as the Council on Aging Assistant Director Program Coordinator?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Elise Jackson as
Johnson.
as Council on Aging Assistant Director / Program Coordinator.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, so would you like to come up since you're here?
Sure.
In case there are any questions on Elise's appointment? I would say that I was thrilled. I think Elise will be great.
She has the right attitude, demeanor, background, everything. She's really gonna fit in well.
Okay, and we can lock her in the position then, right?
I think Jasmine's literal lock.
I know.
Yeah.
The only
Wondering
question I have is that being the new kid, is this a replacement for somebody or is this a new position?
The position had been created last summer, and then Katie Petrossi moved to be the director and mayor. And then we did not fill it as written until now.
Okay.
And we did discuss it in the meeting.
We discussed it,
It was a couple meetings ago.
well, we discussed it as part of the ARPA, because we
Yeah.
had to
We had to
ARPA
reallocate,
reallocation.
yeah.
I know it's on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, and it's been within Eric's timeframe, so it had to have been within yours too. So, yeah, so we did, change that position. We have some ARPA funds that are funding it for just this year.
Yeah.
And then next year it will, go back into general fund.
Okay.
If it's gonna create bad blood between you and the library.
She is going to stay on as a per diem employee with the library. She's only 30 hours a week with me, so there was an email, I believe, that they would like to keep her as an on-call employee, which I'm absolutely fine with. And I think she'd be really good at doing intergenerational programming with both of us.
That's true.
So I think it's going to be a good situation. I hope Stacy finds a good replacement for her.
That will be the
So we'll
next,
be
the
posting it
next
again.
hurdle. I'm sure we'll
Right.
post it again.
So do you have a start date for the year?
I think it's the 19th of September. It's the third Monday,
Okay, assuming she's appointed.
assuming.
Yeah.
And Chaz, assuming she's appointed, I will get you the onboarding information.
Okay, well, we won't give her an access key until we know that she's in.
All right, any other questions? Chaz or Teresa?
No,
I do not.
All right, roll call vote,
Teresa Morse, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes?
and Veronica Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Lee,
Yes.
And
Oh,
you,
watch
Colin.
out.
Yeah, don't get any ideas.
But we're gonna do a lot more stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. Yeah, that's the ideas you can rely on.
All right, so, moving on to 3.1, a discussion of the constable policy. So this is something that's been in the works for a fairly long time. And there are one you received tonight, which I don't know if Sabrina got that to you, Chaz. But all of this started on November 17th,
Mhm.
2020, when we started discussing constable policy, because we received an application, we being the Board of Selectmen, from Mr. Stephen D'Amata. And I had inquired about a constable policy and how many constables we had, et cetera, and it was tabled. We consequently had discussed putting a constable policy in place, and we just never quite got to it. So now we are getting to. I'm looking for my constable policy. Here it is. We now have 3 applications. We will need to check with Mr. D'Amato to see if he is still interested once we post. Mr. Dole, we have an application from which I think is incomplete. And we also have an application from Mr. Martin, which is, he states it's a reappointment, but his appointment ran out at the end of June, so it's actually a new appointment. So before we appoint anybody, and we do have an opening, I wanted to put a constable policy in place. So Eric, Chief Sartell and I met, the town administrator, Chief Sartell and I met a few weeks ago and weighed in on what would be in a policy. And so the policy you have in the packet is the suggested policy. So what I need to know is, do you have, I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept the constable application process and role policy. And then discuss the policy itself. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we review the constable policy and current applications.
I second.
Okay, so this is to review the policy, and then we will have to do a first reading after we, discussion. And then we'll accept the or not, the review of the policy and schedule a first reading. So looking through this, we defined 5, there will be 5 constables that when we post, so applications for constables, should I pop this up?
Please.
Okay. So let me go to, give me a minute to get to this. This is 3.1, right?
Yes.
Okay, there's a dog somewhere.
Sorry.
All right, go back. Okay, now I'm gonna do a share screen. And then hopefully this will come up. All right, everybody's seeing that? Did I do it right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the purpose of the policy is to define the application process and the powers and duties of the constables. So this policy sets the number to 5. An increase in number must be approved by the select board, subject to the needs of the community. So it does allow for more. I think MGL allows up to 30 or something.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Actually.
Some communities, I know Framingham, I looked at them when I was doing this, they have 20, I believe, but we are not Framingham. So applications for constables, regardless of qualification, shall not be accepted for consideration when the application positions are satisfied. So when there is an opening, that's when we would accept applications. Was what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I would say,
Go ahead,
I would
Ed.
change satisfied to filled.
Okay.
And I would take away available and put all, when all positions are filled. Because that, I think that's what you mean, you're trying to say is that when we've got 5
When all positions
are filled.
are filled. Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. I'm not gonna edit it here.
Yeah, no, I just thought that might just make it a little bit clearer.
Okay, yeah, that is exactly what I'm trying to say. All right, powers and duties for the town of Townsend, limited forms of civil process within the service of limited forms of civil process within the geographical bounds of the town, and all warrants and other processes directed to them by the select board of the town. So these are the 2 powers. Powers and duties conferred at appointment are strictly limited to only those necessary for these 2 purposes. Constables so appointed are not empowered to and shall not act as police officers, They shall not make arrests or otherwise take persons into their custody. They shall not serve warrants, capiaces, I don't know if I said that right, or criminal processes. Constables shall not obtain query through sieges.
I had one question,
Sure.
and I know that recently the board took a vote authorizing the town clerk to appoint either a police officer or a constable to serve during elections.
That's correct.
Do we need to put that as one of the duties that they might?
I saw that as number 2.
Okay,
And if we transferred that to the town clerk.
okay, I just wanted to,
I thought about that, because I thought, no, this does it. That way, a select board, if they choose not to have the town clerk appoint, we just did that through, the end of April, I think it was.
yeah, it
We
was a
did it
limited
on day.
scope, yes.
And so should another select board decide to do it differently, I didn't want to,
Sure.
make that more complicated. All right, so any other questions on membership or powers and duties before I go down to the application process?
No.
All right, under the application process, interested applicants, and I put this in here, applying only when an opening is available, and I added that after the fact. Anyway, number 1, make a written application to the select board stating their reasons for desiring such appointment, and such information as may be reasonably required by the select board relative to their fitness for the office. And quite frankly, I took this right out of MGL.
Yeah.
Number 2, include in the application statement as to the moral character of the applicant, signed by at least 5 reputable citizens of the city or town of their residence, one of whom shall be an attorney at law. And I will say that one of the applications that we have has 2 of those attesting to moral character who are residents of the town. However, they are the appointing people, since we gave the appointing to the town clerks. And so I, for one, would not accept that, because I don't think that you can attest to someone's character if you're the person appointing them to do the work. Sounds kind of backroomish to me. And
I think
so,
at least the town clerk, I don't know if the assistant town clerk has that authority, because I don't think the board gave it to
we didn't. That is true.
them. So, but I hear what you're saying
True.
about the town.
So, okay. Anyway, so there's that. And then the select board shall investigate the reputation and character of every applicant and their fitness for the office of constable, including both registered motor vehicle, background check, and quarry background check. The chief of police or other official having charge of the police shall, upon request, give the select board all possible assistance in making such investigation. And the office of constable shall be filled only by appointment of an applicant who is found by the appointing authority after an investigation, as aforesaid, to be a person of good repute and character and qualified to hold said office. I was going to add, because in our discussion with the police chief, it was upon appointment, bonds should be posted if you're going to be serving. I don't think about the warrants that the powers that we have here, but the sheriff can use the constable for other purposes. And so a bond would need to be posted, and this is in MGL. There's also in MGL that if you take in funds as a constable, there's a reporting mechanism to the town clerk, and there's a certain percentage of the fees that you collect that need to be paid to the town. And that is in MGL. And the third one that Chief Sartell had suggested was that we have some sort of, within a certain amount of time after appointment, that they complete a training program. However, I did hand out the email that Chief Sartell sent back to me, because I asked him to review this prior to putting it in the packets. He said that it does not look like there's a training standard or a specific organization that provides training for Massachusetts constables. And so I decided just to leave those out.
I think that's the best practice, in part because the master general law may change and require something different or something greater. And so leaving out sections that are already the law,
Right.
it would be duplicative. It could create some conflict if we were too specific.
The other thing is that we, the town, have accepted section 91A of the Mass General Law about constables. And there are several sections under constables. The bond one says, if you have accepted 91A, the other ones don't necessarily have that in there. So I wasn't especially clear about how the reporting of receipts works. So, yeah, I think leaving it out is best. So, I guess Teresa and Chaz and Eric, do you have anything else to say on this? Any additions?
I had a question on Chief Sartell's email. He states in here, in speaking with the town clerk, the town uses them to post notices, the warrant, and assist at the polls. They pay them for these services. So the constables are getting paid from the town for those services?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
It was in the budget.
So
It is
there's
definitely in the
a
budget.
fiduciary responsibility involved in that too. So I don't think that that should be a recommending person, especially if money is involved.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I don't think you can recommend if you're the one doing the hiring.
Yep. Okay.
I absolutely agree.
So should we have that outlined in there? In the application process?
Do you think you need to say it?
I don't think so. I think I think the master general laws covers that.
Yeah, it's just
Covers us in that.
we would vet that out, Teresa, when we are looking to appoint.
Right.
I would assume.
But just so everyone knows, Ross is obviously watching us because
Oh,
he
he is?
texted me something about this,
Oh, okay.
which is saying it might make sense to have to say that there might be a time when the town clerk needs to directly employ a constable outside of the election process.
Did we not?
And so,
Well, would that be limited forms of civil process within the geographical boundaries of the towns? Would it be covered under that?
I don't think it would be, but it might be in that number 2, do we need to spell out or the town clerk?
Well, the Board of Selectmen is the one that's vesting the power to do that. And
Specifically for those election things, but I don't know, is the town clerk the one who has the constable serve any notices for town meetings? Does the town clerk have the constables have to do
So
things?
that's it. So for notifying town, I thought, did we only give her the authority to do it for,
elections.
what did MGL, that was a change.
That was
in
a
the
change
law.
just about elections,
It was just about.
just about elections. It wasn't about,
So I believe that what we've done is direct the town clerk to notify the town meeting.
Okay.
Because the town clerk is the one that, I'm not certain about that. I think it's the select board that gets things out and calls the constables
Okay.
for the warrants.
we could say, or designee, select board of the town or designee.
I want to think about that. Or designate. That might be, that might make sense.
I just felt it important to note that Ross does watch our meetings. I thought that was important for everybody to know. This
Thank
is what he does on
Thank you,
Tuesday
Ross.
nights.
Nothing better to do, huh?
If I can comment for a second,
Sure.
the selectmen,
It's Ross. I'm sorry, Ross.
Where are you?
He's on Zoom.
I do have something.
the selectmen call town meetings, but it's the town clerk that arranges for the constables to post the notices. It's the town clerk that contracts the constables to verify or to protect the ballot box at elections as well as at town meeting.
That we know.
Okay, so I'm suggesting that you let the town clerk directly control the constables for that type of work and not have it go through a select board vote to do that.
The select board has to vote on the warrant and vote that it be posted. We've always done that. And then it's the town clerk who has done the posting. And I thought that it was the town administrator who got it, or the administrative assistant who got it to the town clerk, and then the town clerk called them. Who did this for this special town meeting?
The select board votes the warrant,
Correct.
the town, and sends it to the town clerk, but I think in the
He
past,
posted.
it's been the town clerk that then calls the constable and says, get it posted.
I don't know about that, Ross. I think that, I will go with by the select board of the town or designee. Let me find out about that.
Well, look, this isn't even the first reading, so we have some time.
Yeah, we have time. So,
Well, we've always, I mean, the warrants that go out for town meeting have always been posted by Kim Metzen, right? And was she a constable or was she a special officer?
no, it's always been posted, I thought, well, unless she was called by the town clerk or the administrative assistant to post.
That's her name has always been on the warrants that I remember. And she's posted it at the, at the locations that we specified on the warrant.
I see Michelle Gold on the warrants as well.
I think Ross brings up a good point, which is I'm not sure that any of us knows exactly whether or not the town clerk's office has to use constables in a manner other than the election use, which we've already talked about. And we don't want to
I will
hamstring
tell you
the town.
that I posted both, I pulled both of these out of MGL, and MGL did not say town clerk.
So
This was a cut and paste.
Sure.
Ross, thank you. We'll check into this and we'll have it right for the first reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we also have a duty for the applications that we want the signatures that are requesting adjusted? How do those people get notified?
I think the board should just instruct either me and or Sabrina to tell them they need to fill applications if they want to be.
Right. There will be a posting. If we have an opening for that's the other thing. We need to do a posting for this.
Once this gets passed, it would have
Once
to be.
this
Yeah.
is-
Okay, so these will be null and void. They'd have to reapply anyways, these ones.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
But we can let them know when the.
Right, absolutely. When we post the opening, we should let these little people know
Thank you.
so that they can apply.
And no concerns about who signs.
Yes, we'll let them know that.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to review the policy and bring it forward for a first reading. So I will make the change to membership. I will look required by the select board or designee. I'll find out more about that. And make that change to the powers and duties piece and do a first reading on, so do we have a motion on the floor to review the policy and do a first reading. All those in favor?
Teresa Morse, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes. So I'll put this on for,
Whenever you get it, ready for a first reading. We'll do
There will be a first reading in September.
it.
All right, thank you. We are finally. All right, moving on to, meeting business, the TA evaluation form. Are we good with that?
I'm good with that.
Thought I saw one thing, but I don't see it written, so I must be good with it.
You didn't take any notes.
It's not on here.
All right,
Speak
so.
now or forever hold your peace.
I know.
Is there a motion to, accept the TA evaluation form?
I'll make a motion that we accept the TA evaluation form.
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote.
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton-Duranian, yes.
I'm going to try this. We've already done 4.2. All right. Next one is 4.3, the British Commonwealth Remembrance Project Plaque. We had asked, I think this was in like April or May, one of the meetings. We had Teresa, you're the one that brought this forward.
Correct.
And we had asked that the Town Properties Committee look and see if there's a place to place the plaque.
Okay.
And they came back with 3 suggestions: in front of Town Hall, the Town Common, or the Upper Town Common, which I am assuming is Turnpike and Route 119 in front of Spalding, that triangle.
Okay.
So I guess where would we like to place it? So let's discuss that before we make a motion. Best place. Chad, what are your thoughts?
I have thought about this. I think that we have Remembrance at Town Common. I think it should be part of that. At least we visit that stone every year. And that could be part of the ceremony. So where the stone is in the Town Common, I think.
Don't we stop at each of the 3 places? I'm just thinking of the parade.
Yeah, we
You know.
stop at the town hall,
We stop at the
And we
Upper
stop in-
Common,
and we
correct?
stop at the upper common as well.
And the Town Hall and the Town Common.
Town common, we don't do a gun salute, but the town hall we do.
Yeah.
So,
What about at the Upper Common? Is there a gun salute at the Upper Common?
no, the gun salute at the bridge at West Townsend, which is where I thought would be the most appropriate place, down by the West Townsend, only because that's
There was a reason they couldn't, I think it's non-town property.
something like that.
I think that
I know
was the
the
problem.
family that asked for this wanted it in that general area. That's where he grew
That's-
up with. That's his
I think it has
church,
something to
etc.
do. It has something to do with Fish and Game or something. It's not.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not our.
Yeah.
My thought on that location also is that you know, I think it's most logical at in front of Town Hall. I don't think that fits there. But again, we do the Remembrance, and the down by Spalding, that's really the firemen's kind of area.
I agree. So, and I want to make sure I didn't misspeak. The family was very appreciative. The families were very appreciative, no matter where it ended up.
Mhm.
So I don't want to think that they were insisting it being one place over the other. The town common works. Anything works for me, so.
All right, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we arrange for with the British Commonwealth Remembrance Project for the placement of the plaque on the town common.
I second.
All right, any further discussion?
I would assume you're gonna reach out to them? Or do you have the contact information of the group?
I don't have it, but I can certainly.
Okay, I have it, so I can give it
Okay.
to you. Okay.
Okay. And do we want to see the plaque before it's placed?
Yeah, we might want to have some.
Are there any
guidelines.
guidelines on
Yeah.
the plaque, or, I mean, do we know what this plaque
Maybe I should bring back a specific proposal for them
Yeah,
about
Yeah.
location and size. And then the board can take a look at something more specific for the common, now that they know where we.
Yeah.
yeah, we
I-
definitely, in my opinion, I want to make sure that it fits with the current feeling in the town common.
Okay, so let's, do we need to amend the motion or,
I have
No,
a-
I think the motion is for the location, which I think is still the same,
okay,
and you can just direct me to.
all right, so, yeah, I would like more information, size, what it looks like, it's where to place on the common. But we can vote that the placement of the plaque is on the town.
So that's what
common.
this motion was for.
Okay, so roll call vote,
Teresa A. Moore, yes?
Chad Sexton Iranian, yes.
and Veronica Cal, yes, and, Eric, we would like you to look into the plaque and what
Yeah.
it looks like. And
Do we need to make a motion or just direct them?
I think you
I
can
think
just
we
direct me
can.
to.
So it's James Normanton. Now, like I said, get you, and I'll just say that we'll direct you to work with him to make sure that it's appropriate.
Yeah, no,
with the
I'll
town.
bring it back.
Would, because it's a monument, that doesn't have anything to do with signage, so we don't have to have the historic commission involved in this?
Oh, boy.
And that is I know, I think that's a consideration.
That is a consideration.
But I think that would be something that we could put on the applicant,
Mhm.
that they need to
Yes.
reach out to now that we have a location that the board is okay with, that they need to reach out to the historic commission.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just like file a notice of intent or something like that.
there's an official word for that, appropriateness. You
Yes.
need to get a certificate
Certificate
of
of appropriateness.
appropriateness. And that's what I had written down, direct Eric to work with the appropriateness of the plaque, so,
Yeah.
all right, so, and bring that back to us. And the applicant can do a historic district commission. All right. Moving on to 4.4, this is for, the Greg Reeves Memorial Run. And we have the letter from Chip Mann, the race director, requesting that, on the date of October 8th, we, close the roads that the run takes place on. And, close Brookline Street between Main Street and Highland Street. And if we approve it, he will work with the police department and fire EMS as always. So, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the request for an event approval for the Greg Reeves Memorial Road Race on October 8th, 2022.
Second?
Any further discussion?
Yeah, is it still called the Gregory's Race, and what's Rad Race? Is that just a typo?
Where are you at?
It says annual Greg Reeves Memorial Rad Race, which I assume is.
Road.
I think so.
I assume is a token, AKA Greg's Run, but I didn't think it was still named that, but. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Anything else? All right, roll call votes,
Teresa A. Morse, yes?
Chad Sexton Iranian, yes.
and Veronica Cal, yes. So, Sabrina, you'll let Chip know. Okay, thanks. All right, MRPC age-friendly designation discussion. This is section 4.5. And we did receive this from MRPC. They're working to make communities age-friendly. And they will work with us. And I think on this, it looks like the planning board, they voted to support this designation. Requested that the Board of Selectmen look at it, which we should. I would like to invite Jonathan Voss to come to one of our meetings and talk about it, because that's actually what it was. So, as opposed to having a motion to go forward with this, I think that we should invite him to, I don't know if you read the letter that he sent. But at the end, we are looking forward to hearing from you with any questions you may have and to schedule a follow-up meeting with your mayor, members of the Board of Selectmen, town administrator, council on aging, senior center director, and or community development and planning department. So I think, I don't know, do we need a motion to go forward with this and then to invite him to attend? I would like to have I think it's more than just the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know that you necessarily need to have a motion about it, but I think that you can direct me to reach out to him to schedule something, and then once we have a date, then we can put it on the Board of Selectmen meeting and invite the council on aging and the members of the land use department.
And yeah, I think that would be good. So what do you guys think?
I agree.
All right.
What about, I thought Jonathan Voss, I know the name, I know of him. Is he also, or is he just at the regional level?
He works for Mrpc. Is what I understood. Or at least he has an Mrpc address.
That's what I
He's a
did think. I
regional
thought he
plan,
was a regional
yeah.
plan.
Okay,
So I would certainly support this, and I have some thoughts, but I would want to hear about what they're planning to do, and then how we as a community go forward. All right, so let's set up a meeting.
Okay.
For sometime in September.
I'll look at his schedule, and we know when we're gonna have meetings in September and see if that
That
works.
sounds good. All right, we have some highway project requests that have come in. They're seeking approval to spend $188,519.41 of Chapter 90 money to pave Weaver Road. And then there's also with the RAP program, the winter whatever program that the state put in place, the additional Chapter 90 money that they're giving to towns. They would like to spend some of those funds. I had a question on that. Some of those funds to pave Knollwood Lane, Woodland Drive, and Greeley Road. So I think we need two motions here. One for Wheeler Road. So let's go with that one first. Is there a motion to spend $188,519.41 of Chapter 90 funds to pave Wheeler Road?
I'll make a motion that we spend $188,519.41 through Chapter 90 funds to pave Weaver Road.
Second.
Weaver Road.
Any further discussion on that one?
Yeah, that funding did we anticipate this in a budget under Chapter 90, or is this funding that just came in, or where does this come
My
in our
understanding
budget?
is the Chapter 90 funds come in at a certain amount every year.
Yes.
And then the highway department determines how to spend them on resurfacing.
But do they show in our budget?
No,
Oh,
it's
They don't, okay.
it's not something
Yeah,
in our
okay.
budget. It's state funds that come in.
That come in.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Roll call vote then.
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. All right, the second part of this is to use the RAP money. Now, these are additional funds. These the state used to give these out, and it's been like 10 years since they've done it. And I guess the state is rolling money.
Hey, they're talking about sending all of us checks.
Yeah. That's right, that's right. So they have come out with this winter recovery assistance program. This has been brought back, and our town gets $284,786.21. Of that, the highway department is proposing to spend $199,926.21 for those three roads. So is there a motion for that?
What three roads first before? it's
Woodland
done?
Drive, Knollwood Lane, and Greeley Road.
That's the wrong one then.
And these are monies that we had to put in and Jimmy Smith did. We had to put into the state and say, yeah, we want those. And then we have to figure out how to use them.
Yep.
And so this is part of that.
Okay, I don't have the right paper up in front of me, so if you could just give me the names one more time.
It's Woodland Drive, Knollwood Lane, and Greeley Road, and they are on the agenda if you have the agenda.
Oh, right on there. Jen.
Under 4.6. We already did the Greeley Road one.
There's also been coordinated work, some with the water department and all of that kind of stuff, so that there's no other work they're going to be taken care of after the specific water department or whatever has done their work as well.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I decided to print things out today. That was a mistake.
And you can't find it.
I do
in the
much
list of
better just
papers.
working from the computer. I can't find it within the thing. Okay. Almost there. So
File off a so moved that way.
what number are we at? Okay, there we are. I make a motion that we approve the highway project request for Nolan Lane, Woodland Drive, and Greeley Road.
Second.
All right, so discussion, I have one. We have $84,859.99 left. I assume we're doing something with that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know, but I can certainly. Well, so Jimmy and I have talked about the RAP funds in general, and I do know that he does anticipate expending the full amount, so
okay.
unless this came in way under budget. For some reason, I think there's probably something still in the hopper.
And my thought is if we're spending the money on roads, we should think about, when we have extra funding, those roads that we're gonna be painting bike lanes on. It would be nice if the roads were paved. Just looking at those pictures from the shared streets and spaces, I'm thinking, we're gonna put bike lanes down there. Maybe we want to pave those first. I don't know, just a thought.
I'm sure Jimmy has lists. So
Okay.
we can talk to him about it.
I mean, it's his call, but.
I don't think Jimmy would want to leave any money on the table anyway, so.
No, I
No,
can't imagine.
no. All right, so, anything further? So roll call votes,
Teresa A. Moore, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Collins. Thank you. And there is some signage to be done on things here, so, I will grab that after that. All right, the next one is the animal inspector nomination posting.
Do we have to make a motion for that? To make a motion that we post the position of Townsend Animal Inspector?
And I second that.
Did anybody look at the posting? Sabrina put together a posting for this?
I did.
Because we have not put a posting up before. It was just the two people. And neither of them, well, I think in our communications and announcements, John King has resigned as animal inspector. And Mary Letourneau, who was our other one, who hadn't been appointed for the past year, is not interested in going forward. So we do need to post. And so Sabrina went and got something. I had a couple
Yeah,
questions.
I did too. Do we need to vote first on it
Uh,
and then
Make a
question?
motion
Yeah.
first.
The motion's already been made and
Made,
seconded.
so,
So you
Okay,
can- This is just part of discussion.
this is discussion on the motion.
okay. I thought we voted and then discussed. I'm losing it again. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I had two things, but if you have some, go
I
ahead.
do have something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just saw that the such annual fee was listed on the posting, but then it talked about having a pager and being available for any type of rabies, right? Are those, is there above and beyond that you paid every time that you called? Is that how that the position works?
It is a pretty much stipended position. And the one question I had is also with the pay rate, because I am pretty sure in the town budget, we have it, I think I took out all these town budgets. We have it higher than $500. But when Sabrina was doing this, MGL specifies 500. We increased this by 3%, and it was more than 500. I'm sharing the screen. Let me stop my screen sharing. So I can get into.
Well, I'm just curious how many rabies calls like we have. So, I mean, is this something that people are going out for? They were going out weekly,
These calls go to the animal control.
but that's not what it says in this
That
position.
is not what it says here, but we have never posted this before, so we never looked up exactly what it was supposed to do. In the past, I think it's mostly done the barn books. You know,
Yeah,
the
this is under the
head count.
livestock section of the Mass General laws. So this is specifically about the livestock.
Correct.
But that's, again, that's not what the
Uh-huh.
posting is.
So, well, yeah, the last section, and I had a question on that too. Capture rabid, suspected rabid animals in the event of a bite or other exposure to humans or domestic animals. You know, everything else is pretty much make an annual domestic animal survey using the barn book. I know that's what they've done. Check any cattle that are imported from other states. I know that. Make an animal inspection of all permitted barns and stables. They've done that. This last one, capture rabbits, suspected rabbit animals in the event of a bite. That's the part that I didn't know about.
And
And
And it goes further than that. It says not just capture them, but transport them to
Right.
hospitals.
and it's the Townsend Vet Hospital is our designated place.
And I don't know if you have to transfer them live or deceased or.
I couldn't tell you. But that is something that I know wasn't done previously. It went as far as inspecting the barns, making sure all the animals were, you know, the way they should be and happy and, you know, all
Happy
of
animals,
that,
that's what we gotta have.
well taken care of. So I'm getting,
So, yeah, I do have concerns about the way it's being posted, only in the fact that what's listed as the salary and to have to carry a pager and transport rabid animals seems a lot for the sum that's
It
being.
is very, very low. And I don't know when the last time that NGL was amended.
yeah, I don't even.
I mean, there's some things.
So do we have the opportunity to remove that section of the posting?
Can we do that?
We could, I don't see why we couldn't post it for something less than. And not have them do rabid animals. I mean, I guess the question would be, do we want to take that out? And what if the only one we have to call is this person?
Then who handles
Handles
that?
Then what do we do?
Yeah,
If we leave it in this, even if our general practice is they call the other.
Animal
officer,
control
the
officer.
Control officer.
Do
But
we have
that's-
the animal control officer's job description? Is it in there? We can
I
cross check
don't
if
think
it's in there.
that was one that column is there. I can look at that pretty quickly. But I do not believe that the animal control officer was part of the column.
I would suggest, just as a matter of overlap, that we leave that. We leave that in the job description. Just in case. The animal control officer is not available or is resigned and we're posting it. So we can have another person to call, but I do agree with you that it seems like that stipend seems extraordinarily low.
I mean, I have no problem leaving it in if there's also a way to fund when they do transport. You know, put themselves, there's risk of putting yourself, but catching rabid animals that, you know. So I don't know what we have, don't know what options we have, but it seems for the amount it's listed, $500. With those having a pager, having to keep a pager on you. to collect animals seems awful low.
Yeah, hold on a minute, I have to budget it up here.
And do we still really have babies?
Okay, so Rio Pen, $607. That's what's in our budget
Okay,
for the animal control officer.
The animal,
The animal
Inspector.
inspector, professional services, last year it was $589. We increased it to, 607. So. We did the 3% increase that we did with everybody, and we increased all of the stipended positions by 3%.
but even before that, we were paying more than $500.
Correct. So
what
it's
about-
budgeted at 607.
and what about the animal control officers? Does it first say anything about that job?
We didn't, I don't have a,
Yeah,
I've
okay.
never seen a job description for the animal control officer. I don't even,
Okay.
it's under the police department, that's where it's funded. So, I don't know if they have a job description that's separate, but I have never seen an animal control officer. It was not part of the council,
Okay,
so.
I guess the question is, what's the will of the board?
I thought that we keep it in for now. My thought would be check to see what the animal control officer.
that's what mine.
If the animal control officer does the rabbit piece, take it out on this. I am fairly certain that they've only ever done the barn stuff. Not that piece. The other question was reporting to the Board of Health. I didn't know about that piece either. If that's what's in MGL.
If there's a rabid animal, they have to report to the Board of Health.
So that makes sense, but they didn't do rabid stuff before that I know of. So the piece about reporting to the Board of Health is new. So appointed by the Board of Selectmen and reporting to the Board of Health. That piece I didn't know before. I think the barn books were handed out by the accountant, and the accountants took them back. And this is what I've seen in my time as a selectman, and generated the payments to the animal inspector.
Right.
So
I suppose that there's the reason why you would report to the Board of Health is in the event that you find something that's not okay.
yeah,
And that's would be where the jurisdiction is to make some sort of remedy, would be, it's a health
Right,
situation,
and
it's
it's not-
livestock.
I would
Right.
assume, right, it's not just the rabid animals. If there's something wrong with like a mad cow, I'm sure, something.
yeah.
Worst case example.
Yeah. Very bad.
Reports too doesn't mean that the Board of Health is dictating what they do.
No,
Yeah, they just provide
No.
reports to.
So, the animal inspector provides reports or reports, because there's a difference there. If I say reports, then that's who I expect to always talk to. If I'm providing a report that says these cows have mad cow disease, that's different to me than reporting to the Board of Health.
in your opinion, when I say reports to, I think that's where it belongs, but then in my mind, that means this is the person that would be doing their evaluations, except the Board
Exactly.
of Health.
Yes.
And I have no problem with that for the animal inspector myself.
I mean, I don't know how it was done in the past. Who did that individual report to?
No one.
Well, and I think that's probably the reality is this person has been doing it for so long that they just,
They
Kind of
are
did it.
nominated by us. They are appointed by the state. So maybe that's the distinction. They are nominated by us. We do not hire them. So there's another piece to it. We,
So
the
they-
Board of Selectmen, nominate them. Then they have to
Oh, the
put
state
in
has
an
to appoint- okay.
application, and that's notarized. And then the state appoints them.
So that's really where their authority lies, is from the state appointment.
Right.
So the fact that it says report to the Board of Health, that's their liaison in the town, because that's where they're gonna be, if there's an issue, that's where they're gonna be coordinating response to an issue,
Right.
but their authority lies with their state appointment. So I think
Correct.
that-
That's like the, because I am the Housing Authority State Rep, which I have been nominated by the Board of Selectmen, but I am appointed by the state. I've been appointed by the governor, and this is the same thing. So technically, they report to the state. They don't report to any board of the town.
But this last sentence in the first paragraph, so it explains that we have a vacancy for a part-time position of animal inspector. All right, the position is nominated by the Board of Selectmen and appointed by the state for a one-year term.
Yep.
Which can be renewed annually. The animal inspector reports to the Board of Health. So I think of when I see reports to the Board of Health, I think exactly what Teresa explained. So do they report to the Board of Health, or do they report to the state?
Well, I think the appropriate place for them to report in the town is to the Board of Health.
Okay.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
It certainly shouldn't be the Board of Selectmen. I think that the last thing you want to do is have, chickens that are kept inappropriately. That'd be something that shows up in a Board of Selectmen meeting. That's not,
Okay.
that's not, it should be at a Board of Health
Okay.
meeting that comes up, and that's where, that sort of their day-to-day function. If there's an issue, the Board of Health is the appropriate venue, I think, for them to raise those
Then-
issues.
100% agree with that comment. Thank you, Mr. Town Administrator.
So this posting then looks perfectly fine to me. The only thing that I would change is the 500 to 607. And I would take out the per MGL chapter 129, chapter 17, if in fact we are paying 607. That is what we have budgeted.
Why don't we
Or
put
are we-
what has been approved by the town, or however you want to put it that way, instead of putting a dollar figure?
Well, wouldn't you want to know what the dollar figure was if you were applying? That's just what I'm thinking. You don't want to apply thinking that you're making $1,000 a month when actually you're getting a stipend of $607, which will probably just cover your gas to run all over town to all the barns and check out the animals.
Okay.
I would just put $607.
Okay.
So I just want to mention something in checking the state's website. The primary duty of the animal inspector has recently become rabies control. So the rabies has recently been moved to the animal inspector's jurisdiction. So that is
And
That is
they're
a
still
recent thing.
only paying them $500?
I'm not suggesting that it makes sense. I'm just suggesting that that's. Maybe that is why our animal inspector no longer wants to be an animal.
Well, it could very well be. That could very well be.
So yeah, there's a whole page on the state's website about.
And that's new. And
But
that's why.
it
I never
recently
heard of it
happened.
before. Yeah,
That's why it's.
I never heard about it before.
So-
It was all,
I think we need to check on this before we post it.
I would agree. I'm not
check
comfortable.
on rabies.
Rabies, yeah.
Yes. The posting of what exactly this is gonna detail.
There's a contact information here for the director of animal health in
Is
Boston.
that who you've been talking to, Sabrina? That's what I thought.
Yeah, so this is. So it seems like we've already gotten the directive that this is what that job's supposed to
That's
accomplish.
what it's supposed to be. So
All right, so let's just change my vote then would be to just change the number to 607.
I agree.
And go with posting as is.
Oh,
Chair, do you want to check through with the control officer? Okay.
If they
Well,
do the rabies,
if we're keeping the rabies,
I
I think
think
it's
we have to keep it because it's part of the required by the state, and it's the state who's appointing them.
okay. But, I think it's very vague in the posting, must be available by pager for prompt response to rabies calls.
We don't want to
I
be
don't
too,
think,
we don't want to be too specific,
you know, okay,
just because we don't want to say you have to respond within
you don't
half an
want to-
hour, because what if they can't, what if they?
Right, that's what I'm
They
saying.
probably have
you know.
another job.
And they're probably doing this in lots of places, so your
Yeah,
prompt, I think, is probably, I mean,
It is okay.
I think that's probably appropriate. So you just want to vote on changing the number to 607 and then
and posting.
post
I'd
it?
like to make it higher.
Well-
Yeah.
Well, that's something we would need to talk about during the
I'm
budget
joking,
season.
Ken.
Yeah.
But no, I know you are. I agree with you too, but this was a change by the state and we really have to go by what we've budgeted for. We can't change that.
We are
This is-
raising it
this-
$107 over what the state says they're to be paid.
It's
That's
truly an
almost
Almost
unfunded
$10 a
mandate.
month.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so
Okay.
we got a first, did we make a motion yet?
we
There
made
was
a
a motion.
motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll vote on the amendment, so,
All right, so, voting on the amendment, change, no, let's just make it a motion with changing the wage to $607 as
Yes,
budget.
that's easier, I think.
I make a motion that we post the animal inspector for the town of Chelsea with the change of the wage to $607.
Second,
All right, all those in favor,
Teresa Amor, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
Veronica Cal, yes. Contract with energy aggregation. Is there a motion to have Eric sign this for the town?
I'll make a motion that we sign the contract with Good Energy for community aggregation.
Is
Second,
there a second?
second.
Thank you. Any comment?
I did have one comment. Did we make a determination that we were going to look at both commercial and town concurrently, or
This is for municipal aggregation.
Just
for the
municipal.
community. It's not for
It's
the
for community
building.
aggregation,
This
it's not
is
for
for
just
all
town
the
building.
people in
But we
town.
they are doing both.
okay, but it would be two separate contracts.
Two separate
Okay,
I
agreements.
so we
thought
just,
that Ross was gonna look, and maybe Ross is still on, I thought that what we agreed was that Ross was gonna look at both Good Energy and the other company, Freedom, something. That there were two companies, one that had
Hand
presented,
his hand up.
Ross.
I'm here.
Okay, good. For the, the
town
aggregation
buildings, for
for
the town
town buildings. What was, I thought that we had said that you were gonna look at both Good Energy and is it Freedom Energy? I can't remember the name of the other one that the Energy Committee had put forward. And then come back and let us know where we were gonna go with that.
So
Is that
that is
correct?
100% correct. I've gotten a quote from Freedom Energy that I need them to clarify a few things for me. And Good Energy is in the process of quoting, and I'll have that for you. But when I think both of them are ready, and if I don't like one of them, I will go out and get a third vendor. So you'll have two quotes. That's to consolidate the municipal buildings. What you're looking at tonight is to do the residential aggregation.
Right.
Two separate processes, potentially with the same company.
Right, but this one, this contract is just for the
Community,
residents in
right.
town
Correct.
to aggregate energy costs for that.
Correct.
So, and the motion is for, Eric to sign. So I guess the only question, the discussion is there anything that, this was reviewed by town council for, form? And, they said they would answer any questions that we might have. I sent my questions to Ross. I just thought there was a change city council, the Board of Selectmen. I mean, they were nits. And then I was wondering about the public outreach part. It is in here. I was looking for more details, but that's probably not what you would put in contract. So
I would suggest that Eric can cross out that city council and put in town or Townsend. The public outreach, they will work with the select board, the energy committee, probably the COA, because they represent the seniors and the seniors have a lot of input, and any other groups that the town thinks are appropriate. They will reach out by creating web pages, by sending out email blasts, by creating postcards. They've also done a segment that can be telecast by TCAM, which is sort of a question and answer type session, and anything else that the town directs them to do. I think I mentioned when we were talking about this that in Fall River and New Bedford, they did all this in 7 languages. That may not be necessary for Townsend, but they will certainly take direction from the town as to any other languages besides English that should be used.
we'll need none. That's not the point. Anyway, so, okay. All right. So once we get this rolling, we'll talk to them about the public outreach piece of it and what we need, so. All right, so the motion is to sign, have Eric sign the contract. Is there any further discussion about the content of the contract?
Mm-mm.
Teresa, no? All right, so roll call vote.
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Just Sexton Duranian, yes.
Veronica Cuddy. Thank you, and thank you, Ross, and let us know when you're ready for the, town building piece of it, and we'll get that on the agenda.
Will do. Good night.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank
Talk
you.
to you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Moving on to 4.9. This is the town accountant posting and job description. And did I put both of them in there? Looking. There. These need to be reposted because they aren't up to date. So Sabrina went through, I see the job description. And there should be a posting, and there is. I guess I didn't print the posting.
You want my copy?
No, I've got it here. I do have it there. I didn't put it to the desk. So I would just, I mean, we've already directed Eric to post these, so I just think we need to repost because the one that's up on the website has them contacting Ross. And it said that there were options for interim accounting, but we've already taken care of that. So the posting that got posted, whenever it was, May or June, I think we just said leave the posting up without really looking at it.
I think that's probably.
Is what happened.
All right, well, we'll tweak it and.
And Sabrina has already tweaked,
Okay.
and it looks lovely. As far as I'm concerned, it is fine. with the
Madam Chair,
changes.
may I speak to that?
Yeah,
As far as the postings are concerned, my suggestion to the board would be that we have a HR person. I think everything should be approved by the HR person before it gets posted. I believe that only somebody associated with the hiring or firing in town be allowed to post in that particular area of the webpage. I don't think it needs to be open to anybody posting in there or make changes in that particular part of the website.
that's
That makes
a,
sense.
that's a, yeah, that makes sense. So if, Callie could get them, she can hand to Harrison what to put there.
Correct. And then do we have anybody else that posts there? Because nobody should have permissions to post on there except for the webmaster.
Yeah, I think so. I know that anybody that has, privileges, overall privileges can post. And so that would be me, Harrison, and the town clerk.
Okay, I can just send something out, folks, just saying. If you have job, to all the department and saying, when you have test postings, make sure they come into the town administrator's office and the HR department, the HR director will post them.
Okay,
Well, I think the permissions need to be looked at. I believe that if each department has their own ability to post in their own section, I don't believe that somebody should have administrative posting ability outside of the webmaster and whoever's going to be the admin for it.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense. So we may need to look at that.
okay, can
So,
do that.
okay, the job description for the accountants, this is the one from the Collins Center. And Sabrina went through and took out the draft that was blasted over it. Neither of us could find the job description that had been posted earlier. And the job description that was up there was one from before the Collins Center. It said grade T9, which is not a grade that we have anymore. That was at least 2 years, maybe 3 years old. And I don't know what happened to the accountant job description. I knew I had provided it for posting previously.
Right.
So, because I have to figure out how to get draft out of it. Anyway, so, but this looks good. So if you could give them to Callie
Yep.
and her book and put them up, and if we want to repost on the MMA for this, maybe that's why we're not getting anybody, because the description was not the right description. It didn't have it as a personal services contract, which is what it is now.
Right.
It had said it was a, graded thing in the business plan. So maybe that's why we're not getting.
Okay,
a lot.
we can repost it on,
Okay, all right,
and see what happens.
all right. So that's that. No comments on either the posting or the. Okay. All right, moving on. The salvage request from Sanitary and Parks. And Cemetery and Parks had voted already to approve this on the 10th of August. It's a Ford 350, 1998. Approximate value $400. A mower deck that has no value, and miscellaneous mower parts and garage equipment with no value, and miscellaneous office equipment to be recycled at PC land. And so they're asking us to vote to declare the following items as salvage and approve it. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we consider this salvage request from the Cemetery and Parks Department.
Approve it? Approve the,
Oh, approved.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion?
I would just like to say that I think that Roger and his team kind of go unnoticed a lot of the time, and they do an awful lot of work in town. not only in the Parks and Cemetery, but they help us out with other areas of the town. Roger is always first to help out with the rec department when the rec department needs it. And I just want to thank publicly Roger for everything he's done for us this summer. And I appreciate everything he's done.
So thank you to the cemetery and parks. Any other comment on the salvage request? All right, roll call votes.
Teresa A. Moore, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to ARPA, the ARPA projects. I did hear back from Jennifer on all the projects that we had approved a couple meetings ago. Everything was, I'm looking for my ARPA thing. I think I stuck it in the folder this morning. Anyway, okay, let me see if I can pull this up. I will share screen again. All right. All right, these are our projects. So just to let me go to share screen. All right. All right, so just to reiterate, we now have only two that are down here in the FEMA portion. The meals for seniors is being paid at 90% by FEMA, and the COVID cleaning of the building is also 90% by FEMA. The 10% we moved up to the project numbers that coincide. So meals for seniors, 120,014. This had been 134, I believe. So yeah, that makes sense. Huh? Here's the 14. So and then the COVID cleaning, we did it at 10,000. I'm looking for that. That's right here, ARPA 19. We did have this higher for all the years of the program, but with time, we're going to review this every year. So those are our numbers. The Council on Aging Assistant Director, which we appointed tonight, those funds are, this amount of it is coming from COVID, or not COVID, ARPA. The restoration of hours for the conservation agent was approved and assigned a number for, and that's for the life of ARPA right now. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else that we had done. I think that was mostly it. Everything else is what has been here before. Great. So any questions? We did have a sub-recipient agreement come in from, was that taken care of?
Yes.
Yeah, it's in here because I thought this was our very first one, so everybody should see the response from North Middlesex Cares, but we had voted that the monies were approved, so as long as Eric was good with what was there, he can sign off on these. So
so Emily and I talked about it today. We're just changing up the form so that it's on the letterhead. And they're going to sign it. It was unsigned. They gave Emily the text, but they didn't have the signed portion. So we're going to put it on letterhead. She's going to get them to sign it, and then I'll sign it.
okay, but format wise,
That's format wise. The content is fine. The format is just changed. We're going to
Okay.
change it. So
does that need to change in the policy?
No, because we had the form as part of the policy,
Yes.
but Emily only has it as a PDF. So I had to give it, and so I sent Emily over a Word document so she could, anyway.
It's
all
all
set.
good.
Yes,
Okay.
we're all set.
All right, so it's in the packet for that. I didn't know if Eric would get a chance to review it or if we would.
Yep.
to review it.
Took care of it.
So it's good, taken care of. Any questions?
Yeah, just a general about the There's basically four major positions in the town that are funded by ARPA. What happens in 2024? Do we anticipate that they're just no longer positions we're gonna hold, or how does
Oh,
that work?
no, do you want to know what I think should happen?
I didn't ask what
And
should
here's what
think that should happen, what
All right,
will happen?
it was funded for the life of ARPA.
Yeah.
Just because, and yes, if we, the town, don't absorb those positions go away. However, what makes sense to me is every year, and we have, I think it's 5 fiscal years or 4.5 fiscal years to do this. And right now, actually, the community wellness coordinator is funded through the budget, 10,000. If we add 10 or 15,000 to each of those every year, it doesn't become a shocker in 4.5 years, you know, in the fiscal 2027 budget, which
Mhm.
is where we would have to fund it at half
Right.
of what it is. If we're already adding on a yearly basis 10,000, which is doable in with Prop 2.5, and the amount that you raise the taxes every year, it is doable to add 10K to each of those positions. Now, you say there are 4 positions. Human resources and community wellness are the 2 that I'm talking about.
And the two that are totally funded by.
They are the 2 that are totally funded. What are the other 2 that you're?
The 2 at the bottom, the conservation agent and the assistant director are only partially funded.
Yes,
Mhm.
and the assistant director is only for, this is only for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Next year, it will be in the COA budget, 100%.
And with all the budgets problems we had for this year, we have, without having an override, we have money to absorb these and have put $10,000 into the budget next year.
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe so too. I believe so too.
I believe you guys then.
Um,
But we'll be working on that Rubik's Cube together.
yeah, that's right. That is exactly right. Everybody will. And as far as the conservation agent hours go, you know, that might, it depends on how everybody budgets coming out, but we wanted to put those extra hours in because they're needed.
Yeah, and that's, it's $5,000 a year
Mhm.
for those extra hours, so I mean, we'll have to see. We'll
Yeah.
have to see how that works out by the end of the.
Right. I mean, we did add extra hours this year. We added hours to the facilities, to not as many as everybody would have liked,
Right.
but to highway, we added hours.
Mhm.
Other places where we did add out, land use to support Mike, the land use coordinator, because he didn't have any clerical support. We added our hours there. So it's not, we have the money to add those out.
Okay.
And we're not talking huge dollars. We're talking small dollars, but if we add small every year, we'll have it in the end.
Strategic spending.
Okay.
Yeah, and then what's unseen in here is go to Article 18, the public safety related expenses. We have 2 salaries, one for fire and one for police, coming out of there
Right,
this year, and only this year. Those are the bigger ones, and the bigger issue with funding out of ARPA.
Okay.
We'll see.
That's all I have to say on that. All right, does anybody else have anything else under ARPA projects? Okay. Town administrator reports.
So I have been on vacation for the last 2 weeks. Thank you very much to the board for allowing me to take some time off. I appreciate it. My family appreciates it, I think. So I only have 2 things very quickly to bring up. The first is that the RFP for the soccer fields is due the beginning of September. So
No. The opening should be on Friday,
what was that?
August
Was that Friday?
26th. And the lease runs out for TASA on August 31st.
Okay,
So we are going to need to put on our August 30th meeting, which is only supposed to be the joints. We might need to put the awarding of that lease, because I think we have to vote it. Unless we vote tonight to allow you to award the lease to whomever, because I don't know what's come in.
okay,
But the TASA lease for the soccer fields runs out on August 31st. The
Yes.
old lease, which we extended. So, and I had forgotten all about that. This is one of the ones that I wake up in the middle of the night and think, yes, I have to do something about that. And then I completely forget about it when I'm making the agenda. So we bubbled up again last time.
So we have that coming up on the calendar
Okay.
for the opening.
I will not be here to join you for the opening,
Okay.
but Sabrina will be.
Sabrina can come in and be official.
And be the official, observer.
The second thing is, and I just wanted to kind of let the board know this, I think unless he has a conflict, this is likely to land on Chaz's desk, which is, we've been requested by the school district to participate in their 4 budget summits. And they have requested to have the town administrators, the Board of Selectmen representative, and a FinCom representative attend each one of these virtual meetings. They're on Mondays at 5 p.m. For 4 Mondays, October 17th, November 21st, December 19th, and January 30th.
I will
I-
take time off to do those.
Yeah, I think I figured since you're the liaison with the elected boards, that would be you, but I do need to, one of the things I'm gonna ask the FinCom, I'm gonna ask Don to kind of put it on their agenda for the 30th, even though it's supposed to be only for discussing the budget, is for them to appoint a member of the FinCom to do this as well.
Okay.
So I just wanted to let the board know, and I will send those dates specifically to you, Chaz.
Okay.
You can put them on your calendar.
Now, are we
Yeah.
going to be getting agendas from the school on, because communication tends to go one way there.
Yeah, they've requested some. It'll be interesting. They are looking for us to provide them with some documents as a part of this. They want us to they want the state of our FY23 budget, as well as projected areas of growth, the preliminary outlook for FY24, and the number where the district needs to fall to ensure a successful town meeting. So, I don't know that we're gonna know that by October, but I do think that the expectation is that we're gonna have to, that they're gonna try to have their budget set. And that we're gonna need to have some range to give to them sometime during
I
this.
think we can come up with something.
We can do that, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's doable.
My answer was gonna be, take what you did this year, add 1%. That's what you can do for next year, but I don't know
Start
how they
with
take that
zero.
very well.
I could do better, but anyway, okay.
It's gonna say, there's one number better than 0.
One number
Better than 1.
Sounds like a very Godfather in kind of response, which is, I have your answer now. Senator."
That's
and that-
1 for yes, 2 for no.
So those are the 2 things, and like I said, I'll send you out all the dates and the information I got from the school department, Chaz, so you can have all those dates.
Okay.
That'll be it.
That's it for the TA report?
Yes,
All right.
I'm sure my next meeting I'll have a much more voluminous report. But I'm digging out from emails.
All right.
Still,
The reports from board liaisons, I threw in 5.2.0, the community compact grant availability and time. Because this has come out and we should really look at this and decide what we want to apply for. I think we can apply under 2 of these, if I remember right. So are there any best practices? Do we need an IT grant?
Yes.
The efficiency and regionalization of municipal fiber. Those, so I just thought the best practices program is open right now. You could start applying on the 15th, and it's, I believe, rolling until they fill up.
Yeah, we have with discussions that Eric and I have had with Guardian, they are going to be helping us write a grant for that. So we
Okay,
have,
so, yeah, so the application period is September 6th, which is coming up.
Yep.
To noon on October 7th. So that's something that needs to be in the works now. So if you're doing the IT, if you're doing the municipal fiber, that's March 15th, 2023.
Yeah.
Right. That's yes, but both of those are earmarked for what we talked about. Eric and I have been talking with Guardian about that.
Okay, so that's the window.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out.
And I got some information from the state about those and the application information. So
Okay.
looking at our best practices, see if there's anything that we can put together for that as well.
That sounds good. All right. That's all I wanted to do there. General government,
Are we on this now?
we are.
Well, before I didn't get my liaison, and it's technically not a liaison, but before, I'd like to bring this up. We did receive, the meeting that we went to with Randy, the school,
Raj,
whatever.
yeah.
Right. We did receive an email, I think it came out actually today, that it's to let everybody know that they got the language back from the attorneys, and they want to send it to be approved by town warrant. And I just thought mine, and I believe you agree with as well, that, I mean, this was sort of rushed. One, we had a lot of difficulty even hearing them, but I never expected this to be one and done. So I did respond to her that I do feel that further communication is needed before we put it to town warrant.
There was one section, I responded that I agreed with the, looking at that. There was one question that I thought was going to come back to us, and it had to do, it might have been with E&D, that it would be brought to the town for review.
Right.
And the one of the selectmen in Pepperell was the one that brought it up, and I said I thought that was a good idea in the meeting. And so I thought the wording was going to be slightly different
And it
than what
wasn't.
it is.
Yeah.
And so that was, I would have brought that up when it went to town meeting and said, no, we want this change, but.
Is this for the municipal agreement between the school and the town?
Yes.
Yes. And it's different from, there are 2 agreements, and I think you're still working on number 1, correct?
The lease is a separate.
The leases,
yeah.
yeah. So there's the lease for the building, which hopefully is where we will put in what groups can use the building.
That's my goal.
That's the lease for Spalding. This is the overall municipal agreement, and it mentions which buildings are leased from which town, which buildings are owned by which town, how much can go into how E&D and stabilization, that they have these and how they're managed. So it's how you put different towns into the regional, it's the regional agreement.
Right.
The regionalization of the schools, how you get into the region
Mhm.
as a town, how you
You leave.
leave the town, those sorts of things are what is in this.
So they had one meeting and then now they want to put it in front of the town?
And it wasn't
They-
even a full meeting because you got kicked out every 5 minutes.
5 times.
Right, the meeting kept,
Crashing.
crashing, like they ran out of time. I don't know that that's actually what happened, but it's like if you're in a Zoom meeting and you're using a free account and it runs out, then you have to get back in. So we would all get kicked out, and then we would all have to come back in. And so it stopped the flow of everything. You know, you're in the middle of a thought and boom, everybody's out of the meeting. Then everybody has to come back in. So 5 minutes later, when everybody's back in, then you roll again.
It was not great.
Not ideal. And it was a one and done meeting.
Which wasn't clear when they set it up.
Correct. So, anyway, so it would be good to have another meeting to review it, but it looks like they're sending it to their council. And then they're sending it to the state. And then it would come to the towns for approval in a warrant article at a time.
But I think there's another step due before they do that.
And
So
I
we'll see
agree
what they
with
say.
Teresa, it would be good to look at it.
I agree. I don't see how that was a collaborative effort.
It wasn't.
And then the other thing, I met with the finance committee, but they prepared, it was all about getting prepared for the 30th. So there was nothing, anything we did on that meeting will go through the 30th. Okay, the newly elected select board training. This was mainly on financing, budgeting. The rest of it is pretty much everything that we know. But they really went in giving good examples of financial forecasting, documenting financial policies, and then the setting up of budget committees. I do have a PowerPoint. I put it out on the communications page. I won't, you guys have been through this, but they did show examples of doing a budget, a proposed budget out 5 years, what a 5-year projected budget looks like. And they highly recommended that you should have at least a 5-year projected budget. They gave examples of policies that were, policies that you check off at the end of your post fiscal review time. Did you meet this standard? Did you not meet the standard? And having them very specific, such as like a free cash policy type, so maintain 4% of general, like real numbers, real quality driven policies, not there'll be peace on earth and goodwill towards men policy. So that's actually what she said.
I think that having financial policies is a good idea.
And
We don't have any.
right,
here
they
in
gave
town.
a bunch of examples for us to use. They said, take them, steal them, whatever, and then go down them at the end after the fiscal, at the end of every fiscal season. Go do, we met it, we didn't meet it, why we didn't meet it, we did meet it, exceeded, have a column for that, for all the policies.
I think that's something to work on. I know in my time on the board,
So
we've just been working on getting.
they definitely have them on, on reserve funds, on reserve accounts, all sorts of ones. And like I said, they're right out there. It's on there for us to
It's a
use.
good idea, yeah.
To have. Quickly, it's funny, they went through, they felt one of the most important things was to have a school budget subcommittee that's made up of small group to work with the schools, including town and school administrator and a member from the chair. So I don't know if they were at the meeting or whatever.
Well, I think too, it depends on, do you have a regional school district or do you have a school district within your town? I think that makes a difference in the approach, and I think that what they requested is good.
I agree.
They gave some general timelines, begin early, right in September, et cetera, like that. Start, and by October and December, you really need to be auditing your previous years and setting the tax rate. Again, all of that is
We
out.
do have a budget policy.
Yeah.
It hasn't been adhered to. I think since Andy Sheehan.
Been a long meeting, so I'm not trying to go into
Yeah.
too much detail because I know you guys know a lot of this stuff, but it was very helpful for me. a lot of discussion was over when you would request a general 2.5 override, which is permanent, versus a depth exclusion, which, as we all know, is not permanent and goes with the bond end. And just really some thoughts behind that, because there's been a lot of towns had examples that their 2.5 failed, and it might have passed if they did a depth exclusion, but whatever. Again,
I
these
thought
are-
that exclusions were for borrowing though.
But yeah,
That's what I
that
thought.
exclusion goes with a bond.
with the bond.
Yes.
When
And
you
then
buy-
it go- the minute the bond's
So
gone, paid
What
off.
we
it goes.
had proposed this past spring was not a candidate for a debt exclusion.
Because there wasn't
Okay.
borrowed.
Because it wasn't balanced. This one brought up a lot of discussion. This was the town of Westwood. I don't even know where that town
It's
is.
around 128.
So Westwood gave an
Where's
example.
the train station?
They-
Anyway, go ahead.
They felt that they gave this example, and they said 1/3 of all the towns in Massachusetts work this way, and more communities are going to this way, but they feel that they had a significant savings about to the homeowners of about 15% due to increasing their commercial rate, which it was only, the commercial taxes only made up 15% of their taxes, but paid 26%.
It doesn't, sit down with Vicky and she will explain to you why that doesn't make sense in town.
I'm sure there's plenty of
Well, the
reasons it
residential-
doesn't make
Right.
sense in Townsend, and I can tell you right here, so they shared what they were, their residential rate was 14, and yet their commercial rate was 28, and there's no way this town, we would do that.
It doesn't make sense in town.
So, but it is, it does, they went, like I said, on and on and on. It doesn't, the commercial people never left the town. That's all a bunch of lonely, blah, 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 blah.
No, it isn't for that reason at all.
Okay.
It's more of a dollars reason.
Oh, okay.
Vicky can explain. It to you. She explained it to me. I'm just not prepared to come up with you, 'cause I have the same question.
Well, I will work with Vicky, but
First year.
according to Westwood, they are saving their citizens 15%. This one is my favorite, and where I'm gonna end here. Again, I am not recommending any of these things, I am just sharing, okay? But 80% of the operating budget is staffing. So they recommended, or they showed examples of a town going to regional police and fire departments.
80% of 40% is staffing in town because
60% of the school.
So, well, they were including
So,
school staffing. So they
so-
did start with regional school district was the first thing they talked about. And then regional
61%.
police and fire, but we already had regional
Yeah,
school.
no, and
Anyway, so, like I said, I'm just putting, and then there's a whole list of resources that's available on the thing, but
yes.
they did recommend, like I said, that they'd recommend, shouldn't say recommending, but to think about saving costs with regional school districts and regional police and fire.
We're looking at some regionalization efforts. I mean, we talked about maybe a regional energy manager,
Mhm.
the Sealer weights and measures.
Yeah, they had a lot of sharing, they were talking about some small towns up like North Adams, that area, they were sharing, HR resources and places like that, that it's hard to get. There's not enough money in the budgets to support a full-time hire, but work with the town. So they shared, things like that. I remember it was like an HR resource and stuff like that.
I will tell you that I think the finance policies are a good thing to get in place, but we've been pretty busy.
Well, I think it's a lot
Other
easier
things.
if we look too, like I said, I have like 15
And then you
examples,
have to-
right? And then it's
you have
easier to take,
figure out what makes sense
Right.
for the town.
Yeah.
Right, but take
so
the examples and rewrite them for us, than to start from a white sheet of paper. Is always a lot
We
of-
just got a full-time town.
And that's it.
Thank you. Elected boards.
As you guys know, I've been a little under the weather, so I haven't really attended a couple of meetings. But I did want to bring up something that I wanted to ask in the beginning, but because I was having computer problems getting logged in, I did, as you know, that I've worked very closely with the opioid committee here in Massachusetts, and I've done a lot of work with the study that we've done. I have talked with the police department and also the fire. We have August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day. And I've been asked to propose that the town make a proclamation for that day in regards to North America continuing to experience the highest drug-related mortality rate in the world, accounting for 1 of 4 drug-related deaths globally. And this basically will name the 31st as the International Overdose Awareness Day and encourage towns and residences and businesses to cultivate a culture of caring and enhanced engagement around addiction, and recognize the agencies that we have been working very heartily with, especially with Emily, our new coordinator, to recognize them as individuals that are making a difference here in town because of the addiction crisis.
Chaz, on that note, do you know anything about the funding that's coming out from like CVS and Walgreens, et cetera, to help with those programs with that lawsuit?
It's very limited funds that Townsend would get.
Yeah.
Very, very limited. I know that I've worked with, in talking with the chief also has officers that are willing to pass out ribbons and that kind of stuff to help us with the recognition of that day as well.
So that day is next week.
Correct.
And I think that if you make a proclamation for a day, you should have some sort of plan in place. As opposed to just saying, oh, it's this day. I mean, this is all well and good, but it's already proclaimed, correct, as International Opioid Awareness Day. So what does it mean for us to proclaim it, and what are we doing? In other words, I'm not opposed to anything like that, but I think if you're going to, is it enough to just say it, or does there have to be something in place, some plan? I can see saying, this is the day, let's next year have a plan for the day, so that the proclamation means something, as opposed to just saying, oh, we can proclaim it that day.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Do you see what I'm saying on that?
I do, and like I said, had I brought this out earlier, we would have had a little more time. So I would be open to recognizing the day, and I also would like to. Is Chief Sartella, you on? What is the police department looking to do on the 31st, along with North Middlesex Cares?
We were actually thinking about having some sort of a vigil at night. I'm trying to see if I can arrange that. But that said, we are equipping our officers with ribbons. They are all going to wear them that day. And we are looking at doing something in the afternoon to have some sort of ceremony, whether or not be a prayer service or something along them lines. Again, the late hour kind of struck here, like you had said. Mm-hmm. I do know that the folks that run the drop-in center are otherwise engaged in festivities, celebrating the same or recognizing the same day in other communities. So again, maybe a little more planning from us could make something different next year. But I think it would mean something. It really signifies why we would be wearing either purple ribbons, why we would be giving them out both out of dispatch and our officers out on patrol, and our officers just spreading awareness. It heightens the awareness is, I guess, my reason why I would like it proclaimed such.
So would the board be interested in recognizing this year, the 31st? And then I can propose a proclamation for next year and give plenty of time and maybe work with the police chief to be able to arrange some sort of festivities on the common.
Yeah, at minimum, I'd like to see, I don't know, it shouldn't take too much though, to put something on the webpage and, or even a, you know, banner running across the town, you know, that this is the day, you know, we have all sorts of factoids about the opioid. I know I have, when I was had that position at Blue Cross Blue Shield, I still have a stack of things that are shocked every time I still read them. So like
Yeah.
maybe just have, you know, did you know? Or, you know,
And
type of
you
thing.
will write that up
I already have them written up,
and
so I
get
can get
into
them, yeah.
to Harrison.
I'd like
to put on the
Chaz,
website?
it's been a year since I held the position, so I'll send them to you, Chaz, and you might just help me pick, you know, make sure they're as current as can be. I'll double check
Sure.
before then, and
Sure.
then get them on the town page.
I'm just not available to do it.
No,
from-
that's
at
all right, I
all
can do it.
From
And-
tomorrow.
And you're always welcome to have Harrison reach out to us. We have a whole toolbox of
I
things.
was
We have
just I was
we have a
just gonna
public
say that.
relations campaign ready to kick off. We're probably going to start posting either Friday or Monday leading up to the day where we have a did you know post on our website. And we do pretty significant amounts of social media outreach between Instagram, Twitter, and our Facebook. We get quite a bit of attraction. So we do have a plan all canned up and ready to go. It's police centric, obviously, but I'd be more than happy to share the rest of the stuff that's in the toolbox. If you want to have Harrison give us a call over at the station, I'll be more than happy to get that to him.
So basically-
Chief, for all those things, have you talked to Eric about this? Is he aware of? Okay. Is he aware? Okay, so I take it that the answer is no. So this is the first that we're hearing about all this.
You're on mute, Chief.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. No, we had planned on it as an internal thing for our department for outreach. As far as a townwide event, no, I had reached out to Chaz a couple weeks ago just to kind of put a bug in his ear about it. But again, the late hour kind of crept up on us.
No, I think we can keep it simple this year and do more last year, but I think it just starts with as simple as this is the day. Do you notice people wearing purple ribbons? This is what it represents. Throw a few little factoids out there and go for it.
And I know that there are other communities that do other things. I think the opportunity for us to better plan something for next year, I think, is important. I know that in Gardner, they do a whole, at Monument Park, they do a whole a balloon release at a certain time, but they have speakers and they have all sorts of stuff going on there.
So then you can write something up that Harrison can post on the news. And if you want a banner running, you can run all this by Eric.
Right.
And how would you?
I don't think a lot has changed since I retired, but
No.
it's only been a, but I do
Actually-
want to look at it.
Unprepared. I'm out of town. I'll be back on Tuesday.
The
I don't know.
unfortunate thing, Teresa, is the numbers are rising because of COVID.
Right, of course, yep, I knew that, so I'll make the adjustment. But I mean, the template I have for how we not celebrated, but how Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, the days that we had the event, I was in charge of the event. So I just have to adjust it.
Yeah.
So I am good with the two of you, Chaz and Teresa, planning something, running it by Eric, and going from there.
Okay. And we'll keep it simple.
Not good with a proclamation. It's too soon. If the police are doing something, then that should be included on the town webpage. So if Chief Sartell could get stuff to Aaron so that he is aware of what's going on in town, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And planning for next year should start earlier.
I will have it to you by no later than tomorrow afternoon.
So you guys can consult, I guess, with Eric, because I don't know,
Okay.
are you allowed to talk to each other? If I say they can talk to each other, if we make a
We're not
motion
setting policy.
for Chaz and, Teresa
We're
to talk to
planning
each
a
other,
party,
are
we're
we
not
good?
getting-
Just send it to me and then I'll send it to one of the other ones. Send it to me. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
We bump into each other at Hannaford's and we both go, whoosh, we go the opposite way.
okay. And so something in recognition that it's International Opioid Day and the police are gonna be doing this and this is why,
Mhm.
would be good. And then plan for next week. Okay. Public safety, I think we've covered that. Announcements, communications. So in the, everything was in there, in the SharePoint. It looks like Unitil is going out for bid again. So there's a notice about that. We have drought conditions, there's a notice about that. We're all aware of that. The workman's comp audit is gonna happen in September, and Sabrina has taken care of that, and is in the process of getting that together. The school lunch program is in here. It says this was asked to be put on the website. Has that gone up yet? Probably not, right? All school lunches, everybody receives school lunch without payment this year. Pretty much what it is. And we could add that to the website.
They still have pizza on Friday?
The square, the rectangle.
Exactly, yeah.
That's it. Water commissioners, Christopher Jones has resigned as a water commissioner, and I believe that the water department will be posting an opening for that. And John King has resigned as our annual inspector. And that is it. So that's all I have for announcements and communication. Our next meeting, we have a joint meeting with FinCom next week, and we should add the case release to that. Just like we should add appointing someone to the sex meetings. And our next regular meeting is September 6th at 6 p.m., which is also the date of the primary elections that we're going to go forward with our meeting regardless. Is there a motion to sign payroll and bill payable warrants out of session?
I'll make a motion that we sign payroll and billable warrants out of session.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Morse, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes. And executive session. And we will adjourn from executive session.
Okay.
So is there a motion?
That's it. I make a motion that pursuant to General Law 30A, Section 21, that we go into executive session, discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. If an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigation positions of the public body, and the chair declares. This is Reed Clark versus Robert DeMora.
And adjourn from executive. session.
And adjourn from executive session.
And I'll
Thank you.
second that motion.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Morse, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
Veronica Kell, yes. So thank you, everybody. And we will see you next week.